Hi, everyone. It's really a joy to be here with you today again. It's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to be waiting a couple of minutes because I can see you joining us, and the rate of people joining is pretty high. So we're going to take a minute or two to let you join fully so people won't miss. But we have a very full agenda today. It's going to be a 4-hour event. We have a lot of speakers. We have the markets speaking. We have 3 great experts, as we always do, on subjects that we all need to know. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, this is a time that is an interesting time. I get calls from you almost every day with questions. So, I mean, obviously, this is going to be, at least for me, a fun event. I hope it's going to be a fun event for you too. Thank you for joining so rapidly here. I'm enjoying looking at this, but we are still going to wait a little bit to let more people join. It is now 10:01. Some people have asked me, well, no, I'll wait for that until we have more people on the line. You're joining pretty quickly now, so we'll give it another minute. Thank you for all of you that joined exactly on time, 10 or 10:01 or 10:02 Pacific Standard Time. I know we have people here from other countries. We have people from the East Coast. And so that's one of the benefits of doing those events by Zoom, where we can have people join from really, all over the world, depending on the time zone. But that is one of the pluses. Some of you have asked when we're going to move to live events. And for the time being, we have no plans to do that. The events in 2023 are going to be by Zoom, and then we'll see how it goes following that. But for the time being, we're doing it by Zoom. A lot of people actually like that better because they can join from New York, from Europe, and places that are much simpler to join by Zoom than flying in. So again, I'm speaking a little bit just to make the time go by a little bit until more people join us. You are continuing to join, and thank you. And all the people who are joining us now, welcome. But in about a minute, I will begin the event and talk about what is going on. Let me see, yeah. So I think just about 10:04 is when we're gonna start to talk, and people who will join us following that is okay. Again, you can listen to it later too. So many things have happened in the last few months. Of course, there's a lot of developments, and I'm just about ready to get started. Again, waiting until 10:04, which is coming right up, at least according to my computer here. For those of you that are on the line, and okay, so here it's 10:04, and I'm going to be starting right now. I already see some questions and notes from you. Okay, very good. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here today. We have a very full event. My name is Adiel Gorel. I'm the CEO of ICG. We've been doing these events for about 33 years. We started operations about 36 years ago. I started investing about 39 years ago. We've been doing this a while. And today, some of you are brand new, joining us for the first time, and welcome. Some of you are veteran investors, and some of you on the line have many, many properties that you already own. A lot of people have already retired. And I'm just going to very briefly, for the new people, summarize our basic philosophy. We believe that buying single-family homes is one of the keys to changing our financial future. In the United States specifically, there is a loan called the 30-year fixed rate loan. And everybody knows 30 years fixed, what's new? But very few people give real thought to what it really means. And when I talk in other countries, it becomes quite clear that they are blown away that we have a loan in this country that for 30 years, the monthly payment, the principal and interest will never change. Never, no matter what inflation is, the cost of living, and also the principal of the loan, which goes down with amortization principal payments, also doesn't keep up with the cost of living. So that is really, in the United States specifically, the 30-year fixed rate loan makes buying rental homes an even more special thing to do. In many countries, people get quite wealthy buying homes, buying rentals, buying real estate. But with the 30-year fixed rate loan, it's just insane because inflation keeps eroding your loan day after day, month after month, year after year. No matter whether you're sleeping on vacation, the loan gets really lower in real dollars because inflation raises the price of everything else in the economy, and the only thing that is left, unchanged is your loan balance and your loan payments. That's a very key thing. So the typical story, story that I hear, and I have thousands of this story, is somebody calls me up and says, hi, I started buying homes with you in my 40s. I'm in Silicon Valley. I'm very busy. I bought just one home to see how it works. The manager took care of the home. It rented. It was pretty boring. I bought another one. I put the very minimum down because I wanted to get the 30-year fixed rate loan as much as I could. And then now at 55, I looked at my homes. I bought 19 homes, which, by the way, may sound very daunting to the new people here. But at the time that he was buying it in his 40s, I was thinking he was buying brand new homes at that time for about $160,000 each. And at the time, Fannie Mae enabled investors to put only 10% down with PMI. That's what he did. So buying 19 homes is not very daunting. And then he said, I looked at my homes when I was 55, and they all had 17 years left on the 30-year term, not even halfway. But then he said, I noticed that the balance of my loans was only 26% of the value of the home. That's what inflation does to the 30-year fixed rate loan. In this case, after 17 years, his balances were barely just about a quarter of the value of the homes. He said, I sold 4 of the homes, paid capital gains, and used the proceeds to pay off the little remaining 15 loans. And with 15 free and clear homes, I retired. And I have thousands of stories like this. People are sending their kids to college. This is very, very powerful. So this is not a joke. We think that buying single-family homes is one of the best investments. There are some exceptions with duplexes in good areas. We'll talk about that if we have time today. Single-family homes enables you to get the 30-year fixed rate loan. And then, of course, some people say, well, the sky is falling, because the interest rates went up so much from last year. Last year, a homeowner could get a home with as little, the very lowest, I think, was 2.75% for a homeowner. For an investor, it was 3.5%. It's always a little higher. This year, right now, I believe a homeowner is about 5.7%, and an investor is more like 6.5%, 6.7%, whatever it is. And people say, oh, the sky has definitely fallen. Everything is doomed. Everything is gone. And what are we going to do? And I know that many of you feel that way too. Now, the media, whatever happens in the economy or in the world at large, the media makes about 10 times more. So I remember in 2004, we had a boom. The media, oh my God, it's a boom, it's a boom. Everybody went and bought. Then there was a bust. Oh, it's a bust. The media makes everything more. Why? Because the media needs clicks. They need readership. They need to come up with sexy titles. So right now, the sentiment in the media, I think, is that the Ukraine war is already a little boring, in the US at least. COVID, really boring already. So what's the hot subject now to write sexy articles? Well, the housing market. So every day there are articles, the housing market is going down, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, the recession is coming, every day. And so people are getting scared. So 2 things are happening. Number one, many would-be homeowners are getting scared to buy because the media is telling them, oh, no, don't buy. Okay, well, if they don't buy, they have to rent. And we are experiencing the rents were already very strong during COVID because people discovered they can work from home. Everybody saw the lockdowns. Everybody wanted to have a home in the suburbs with a yard and room for a home office. So already the rentals became really good. But now, with the media scaring everyone and people not wanting to buy, well, they become renters. The demand for rent is enormous and the supply is not really catching up. So rents pretty much across the board in all the markets that I see are going up. Almost, not all the market. In San Francisco, there are some exceptions, a very expensive market. But in most of the regular markets, and certainly in the markets that we are in, rents are going up. Not only that, demand for rentals is very high, so we rent them faster. This is very good for us as landlords. Now, what about the media's message? Well, first, all the experts speaking in the media and this, not one of them talks about the elephant in the room, the 30-year fixed rate loan, which is really a future changer. The only person I was in touch with that really gets it is a guy called Warren Buffett. And those of you that want, I can send you an article in Entrepreneur magazine from about a half a year ago, talking about my interaction with him by name about the 30-year fixed rate loan. So the media misses this whole point right away. That is a shame. I could even give you an argument that in a certain way, the rates are now lower than last year. You say, what? No, last year as an investor, I could get 3.5%. Now it's 6.5%. How do you call it lower? Well, just to be, not to be coy, but last year, the rates for investor were 3.5%. Inflation was 2.5%. Right now, the rates for investors are 6.5%. Inflation is 8% plus. You could argue, relative to the real cost of goods, the rates are actually lower now than last year. Not that it matters. Those things change. I wrote an article for an investment magazine a few months ago. I would be happy to share it with any of you. It's called, Is It Worthwhile Investing Now That the Rates Are Higher? And if you want to get that article, send us an email at info@icgre.com. And we'll be happy to send you that article. Basically, what I write is that because of the power of the 30-year fixed rate loan, the example I just gave, the engineer from Silicon Valley who retired on the strength of his 15 free and clear homes, he started buying in his 40s when the rates were between 7.75 and 8.25. His success story comes from buying all these homes at rates of roughly 8. Historically, 6.5 is unbelievably low. When I began investing in the 1980s, the rates were 14%, 1-4. A couple of years prior to that, they were 18%. So my first couple of dozen homes were bought at 14%, and they all started with a negative cash flow. Now, I know that many of you read some books called Tall Ant, Short Ant, or whatever the name of that book is, and it says you must have cash flow. Now, I got a call from somebody in Silicon Valley who works at a large company as a high-level manager making $700,000 a year. His wife works in Silicon Valley as a mid-manager making $500,000 a year. And they say, yeah, but we need to have at least a positive because they read fat uncle, thin uncle, whatever. Well, obviously, they don't need anything. When I look at you today, I see the cash flow today coming from your work, from your W-2, from your business, your salaries. That's what you eat from. That's what pays for your transportation. The houses are not required to give cash flow right now. When I began and I bought homes at 14% interest rate, putting the minimum down payment that I could, which wasn't high, every single home I bought started out with a negative. But I had a very clear picture. I said, today it's negative. Tomorrow, which could be a year, 2 years, I don't know exactly, I don't know the future, it'll be break even because the loan never keeps up with inflation. Principal and interest never keep up. But rents do. And then The next day, which could be another couple of years, it'll be positive, then more positive. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what is happening now. So I don't even care if the rates now were 10%, 12%, doesn't matter. And by the way, when we bought at 14%, not only did it start negative, then become break even, then positive, and more and more and more positive, but then finally the rates went down to 12%. So we refinanced to 12 and it became even more positive. And then came the happiest day. I remember the media was having a field day, single digit interest rates. Oh, what a day that was. We ran out and refinanced everything to 9.95. Today, the rates are 6.5 for investors. Most of the 39 years that I've been doing it, if somebody told me that they were going to give me a loan at 7.5, I'd be jumping for joy. So some perspective. The real key thing is somebody's crazy enough to give you a fixed rate loan where the balance and the payments never change in the face of inflation. As it happens, inflation now is pretty high. Rents are going up in all the markets. No, again, maybe 99% of them. There are some exceptions like San Francisco and things of that nature. But this is a very special time. This is something to pay attention to. I see some of our foreigners that used to struggle to get loans are now just saying, well, you know, we read all these articles about interest rates being high. We're just going to buy cash. We're going to buy cash, and then we'll refinance it at some point if we feel like it. Well, that's one strategy. However, the 30-year fixed rate loan is so special, is so powerful that I believe that it's better to buy now, putting 20%. Some lenders require you to put 25%, but not more. And then getting the 30-year fixed rate loan, which will never change. And if the rates ever go back down again, refinance down. That's the beauty of this loan. So, I mean, we are actually experiencing something that for us as real estate investors has a great silver lining relative to last year. Last year, the rates were very low. Demand for buying houses was unbelievably high. Supply was not meeting demand. So number one, many of the builders from whom we are buying brand new homes started saying, well, I have much more business that I can handle. I can get to be picky. You know what? I don't even want to work with investors, no investors, only homeowners, because they perceive homeowners as more vested in the home, caring about the home, and the investor is cold, they may change their mind. So they didn't even want to work with investors. The one that did put all kinds of restrictions of how the investor, today, well, because of all the scare and the media and all of the, the rates are higher, the demand is less. Builders last year were building like crazy to meet the crazy demand. So now supply is catching up to demand in most markets. Builders are becoming nice and soft towards investors. Oh, actually, we really like investors. We want to work with investors. And you know what? Maybe we'll even give you a little bonus if you do this. So that's nice for us, because instead of having to wait on waiting lists like last year, we are now buying homes. Homes are available. Last year, there were people that were calling me, and people call me all the time to do a 1031 tax-deferred exchange. We're going to have an expert today explaining about it in detail. And they were saying, look, I had bought in Austin, bought a home in Austin before. It went up really high now. I feel that it's the peak. I want to sell my home and parlay it via a 1031 exchange into 4 homes in the markets that you're in now. Well, the market said, you know what? We don't know that you can satisfy your exchange requirement because the builders are experiencing supply chain issues. It takes them longer to build. And the 1031 has some timelines, like the most important one, in fact, is that it all has to finish by 180 days. So 1031s were very hard to create last year. This year, no problem. These very days, I have a person selling a home in San Francisco for about $1.25 million, not a big home, obviously, and doing a 1031 exchange into 8 or 9 homes easily because supply is good. For us, supply is good. Those of you that think you have to go on waiting list, apparently right now, it's not like that anymore. So that is good. As I said, the rents are very strong and in fact going up. And in many markets, the unemployment is still incredibly low. So again, I'm a long-term investor. I buy for the next 15 years, 12 years, 11, 10, 13. And that's what I recommend you do. So right now, your cash flow is your salary. And if the house starts out with a positive 100 or at break even or negative 100 or 300 or doesn't matter. Rents are going up all the time. The loan payment will never change. Rents will change. Whatever is now slightly positive or slightly negative will become more positive, more positive. But the point is, how is it going to change your life 12 years from now? When you have all these homes with a loan that's so small, you sell a couple, pay the capital gains, pay off all the rest, and now you can actually retire. Now the cash flow will come from those houses, and the tall uncle and short uncle will be happy. So that's something to really be very cognizant of. Now, the markets that are going to be speaking here today are the markets where the numbers still work. Obviously, there are many markets in the US that we love, many markets where we bought thousands and thousands of homes over the past 30 plus years, but many of them don't work. Vegas, Phoenix, Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Huntsville, Nashville, Denver, Salt Lake City, Georgia, the Atlanta market, the Orlando market, the Tampa market, Jacksonville, all of these are too high right now, too high, meaning the prices have gone up so much, the rents are going up and have gone up, but maybe let's take Phoenix as an example. Since the beginning of COVID and until about 3 months ago, the prices in Phoenix went up by 75%. Rents went up by about 25%. Now, rents are continuing to go up and prices have softened a little bit, about 3 or 4%, but it's still way too completely out of whack between the prices and the rents. And so the markets that remain, that work, are the markets that are going to be talking to us today. And in some of them too, the prices went up and now they're softening a little bit, making it easier. It's not so much the prices are softening. It's the attitude of the sellers, the attitude of the builders that is softening. So that is very heartening to see. Whenever I could get loans, I bought homes. I never stopped buying homes. I bought when the rates were 14, 12, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and 9. Always buying as long as I can get loans. As long as you can get loans, I recommend ignoring the hype of the media. I get interviewed sometimes for media articles. And I sometimes get to meet, it used to be live, but now it's usually by Zoom, my interviewer. So here's an article, it's written, you think it's the Bible. Oh my God. Well, when the writer interviews me, he or she could be a 25-year-old person, almost fresh out of school, very inexperienced, and that's the writer of the hallowed article, because they just need to churn content. I would say I've always ignored what the media say. I bought and I bought and I bought and I bought and I got 30-year fixed rate loans and I sat on it. So really the criteria of where to buy is I talk about buying the Sun Belt states. I've been a student of the demographics in this country for many years, and to me, the demographic flow goes better to the Sun Belt states. States like Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, those kind of states. So Sun Belt states, and then large metropolitan areas for job and industry diversity. I always like the suburbs. The COVID pandemic made the suburbs the darling of the US economy. Everybody wanted a home in the suburbs with a yard and room for a home office. I liked them from the very get-go. So in the suburbs, and then brand new homes. I even wrote an article about why it's better to buy brand new homes. You want to get that article? Send us an email, info@icgre.com. Be happy to share it with you. So you buy a brand new home in the suburbs of a large metropolitan area in the Sun Belt You let the local property manager lease it for you, and then you proceed to do the hardest action for a human being to do. Nothing. You do nothing. The media writes, the media this, the media, nothing. You just let inflation erode the real value of your loan, and the tenant is really paying the loan payments for you via rent, and you do nothing. People even ask me what happens during recessions. Well, let's take the worst one, 2008, 9, 10, 11. The only people that actually lost properties are the people who failed to do nothing. When the prices went down so much that they went below the loan balances, people said, my God, I'm underwater. I can't stand it. They toss and they turn, and then the media pumped, what's going on, everything else. And they then let the bank take my home, take my home, take my home, foreclose on my home. That's how they lost it. The people who did nothing after the recession started to go up. Today, those homes are worth this much. The loans are puny, tiny little loans, lots of equity that was not lost, and it's there. And as a bonus, during recession, rents are actually more stable than during other periods. Why? Because during recession, people who are renting from you, who are saving up to buy their own home, are afraid to buy because the media just tell you, no, my God, don't do that. So they remain and rent. So actually rents very counterintuitively are more stable during recession. So all your job is to do nothing, even if there is a recession. People forget, no matter what, when they take the fixed rate loan now, at whatever rate it is in the future, if it goes down, you can refinance. If it goes up, you just feel good about yourself. So now, people, when I say rentals are good, when I say rentals are strong, there will always be fluctuations, exceptions. I own a large number of homes. At any point, if one of them gets vacant, sometimes it'll rent quickly, sometimes it'll take a month or two, regardless of the time. Yeah, the rents overall are strong, but there are fluctuations, there are exceptions. If your house is vacant, just wait. Again, do nothing, just wait. If you want to talk to me, that's fine. One of the things that we provide you is in all of these markets, we've bought hundreds, if not thousands of homes. And of course, the service providers, the brokers, the property managers care about us. They care about the volume of business that we've given them, and they're very receptive to us. If you have an issue, your home maybe is vacant a little more than you thought it should be, send us an email, info@icgre.com. I and or my staff will get involved, and the managers respond to us. So we have that cloud of thousands of homes working in your favor. I'm not saying it solves all the problems in the universe, but it's very good to have that because we have given them so much business and will give them so much business. They really are very keen to please us, hence to please you. So, I mean, we can get involved and we can help. Just turn to us. If you want to talk to me personally, one-on-one about your situation, how we can help you, what's going on, just once again, send us an email, info@icgre.com. I invite you to do that. I enjoy speaking with you. I chose not to retire, even though so many of you retired. I just love what I do. I think the message of the 30-year fixed rate loan is strong and I want to share it. So I chose not to retire. So I found my own balance. I make music in my home studio. You can find it if you look on all the channels, under my full name, Adiel Gorel, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon. And of course, we have a podcast, a health and wellness podcast, the Adiel Gorel Show, where I interview amazing doctors, experts, and specialists on health, wellness, nutrition from all over the world, where my job, I feel, is to simplify their message and bring it down to earth so we can use it right now. And just look for it everywhere. So that's how I find my balance, but I decided not to retire. So I dedicate about half my time to meeting with you guys, just send us an email and I'll be happy to meet. People have asked, what do we charge for our services? We used to charge about 20 years ago. I decided to simplify. People love to complicate. I like to simplify that. So we're not charging you anything. We participate in the commissions of the local teams in the field, which are not paid by you. So we try to make it simple. Now, let's start to talk about markets. So the first market that we are going to have talk to us, which we will have talk to us today, is the Raleigh-Durham Research Triangle area in North Carolina. And without further ado, I'm bringing up Jan Wins. Hi, Jan.
Hi there, Adiel. How are you doing? It's good to be with you today.
Doing well, thank you. Okay, so while Jerry, who is the moderator, is helping Jan and working on her sharing the screen, I will just say once again, please don't hesitate to be in touch with us, ask your question. I sometimes see that new buyers, they think, okay, I bought a home and it's not rented now, what's going to happen? I still like to use 45 days as an average time, to get homes rented, even though now it's less. I mean, again, just let it be. It's a long-term investment. Everything rents, and most of the homes now rent within 30 days or less, but the exception doesn't really matter. Just let it be. So here, Jan, are you ready?
Almost.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Adiel. I had to redo my presentation today because there were exciting things that were happening in our area this week. So I'm going to get to that. I'm real excited to tell you about it because it'll mean a lot to you. It means jobs. We have a lot coming in. I know we've had the Googles and Microsoft and Amazons and all the other big names coming in. But this is going to be an important thing. And obviously you want to be in an area that has jobs, and jobs are coming in. We are in the Triangle. The Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. And we have a lot of things going on in the Raleigh area. Most of all is some of the things that are going on in the southern area. I can send you this invitation of the presentation. I'm going to send it to Adiel so you can see what I'm talking about, okay? So let me go, and you'll just have to guess what I'm doing. So the Triangle area is Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. We have the Research Triangle Park called the Triangle. Our area is called the Triangle. Research Triangle Park, they hire about 40,000 people, have about 7,000 acres. That's where a lot of our research and development goes on. We have an outer belt line of Raleigh, and the lower part, the southern part, has not yet been done. 2023 is going to be done. We have another area that is on the eastern part of our area, and that is going to be funded in 2027. So that will complete this outer loop. We have an inner loop, and then we have an outer loop. So that's what we're going to be. One of the new things that's come up in our area is a Triangle Innovation Point. It's 2,150 acres of life science and advanced manufacturing. They anticipate 20,000 new jobs to be coming to this area. This is in the southern part of the county, and this is the big news that just came in yesterday. So that's why I had to change my presentation. So VinFast is a Vietnamese car manufacturer. They're making a $4 billion investment in the Triangle region and bringing 7,500 jobs. It's amazing. I think this is one of the biggest we have had since I don't know which one, what the other one was, but that means that 7,500 jobs came in. Then what happened this week is that FedEx decided that they would come in because they feel like they are wanting to provide services to them. So they're bringing 300 new jobs. And Wolfspeed is announced yesterday that they're bringing 1,800 new jobs in the Triangle Innovation Point. So this means a lot to this area. That means 9,600 jobs are going to be coming in. But I use an employment multiplier provided by the Economic Policy Institute, and it tells me how many more jobs one job brings in. And VinFast, with their 7,500 jobs, the multiplier is 7.4 for manufacturing. That means that 55,500 more people are needed to support these people. We need restaurants, we need insurance agencies, we need attorneys, we need medical facilities, all the things that go to retail, all the things that go to support support incoming jobs. So the 9,600 jobs become 69,000 jobs, well over 69,000 jobs. And then hours after they announced VinFast, they announced a massive, yet to be announced fabrication facility that will be needed to turn the wafers that they make in the county at VinFast and spin out to next generation semiconductor chips. Sanford is one of the larger towns near VinFast. Last year, they had a 25% increase in their housing prices. And one of the icing on the cake is that they have a Highway 421 is being converted to Interstate 685, and it will go around Sanford. It goes from Greensboro down to just north of Fayetteville. So it's going to be between 85 and 95. So that's going to be a great corridor for this eastern or southeastern, southwestern area. And it goes around Sanford like a belt line. And back to the jobs multiplier, many of you who have seen me talk before, we have attracted during, I call it the COVID period, we have attracted a lot of jobs and many companies are coming here. It's exponential. People start coming, other companies start noticing. So it just grows and grows and grows. And of course, when you think about how many people they're bringing in, the number of people that Google and Amazon and Fidelity and Fujifilm have brought in, and the development that's been happening, and VinFast and FedEx and Wolfspeed, you're talking about 126,000 new jobs that have been created from those jobs coming in. Johnston County. So let's not forget about Johnston County. A lot of you have made some money in Johnston County. You have a lot of equity to show on your financial statement. Johnston County has pharmaceutical manufacturing. As a matter of fact, they just announced an expansion in Johnston County of the Novo Nordisk plant. There's Nova Nordisk and also Brickholz that is in the Johnston County area near Clayton. And they hire about 4,000 or 5,000 people. Now, Nova Nordisk is planning an expansion. We bought a lot of properties in Johnston County, and it's proven to work out really well for the investors. So I'm real happy with that. We suspected that would happen, just as I suspect it's going to happen, and know it's going to happen around the Sanford area. There are inventory opportunities that we have over in the Johnston County area, as well as we are developing inventory opportunities. We're putting our property managers in place, talking to the builders who are buying up land around where the VinFast plant is going to be. And we're following things pretty closely. We've been to meetings at the economic committee meetings to see what they have on the drawing board and see what's happening, see who's coming in. So we keep pretty close. So I want to talk to you. I know Ariel just talked to you about this. I used a 6% interest rate that I thought if the appreciation, what I'm looking at, and I wish you could see it, and you will see it if you send for the presentation. But if the gloom and doom folks out there, if you feel like inflation is going to be 7% a year, I figured that if you purchase a property for $400,000, put 25% down, you'll pay an additional $16,000 in interest. But your equity will be $90,000 at the end of 3 years. 3 years. So don't be afraid of that. I did do another calculation at 4% appreciation, which is a modest amount, but with the jobs coming in, our area is solid. If there is a recession, we're not going to notice it. So I did it with 4% inflation, and still it was $50,000 in equity for your investment of $16,000 for the overage. So if you have any questions, I'm always happy to talk. And I will be sending this presentation to Ariel so you can get a copy. Ariel, I'll send it back to you.
Jan, thank you very much.
Sure.
And I want to just make one small comment about what you said about appreciation and inflation. People get a little bit confused sometimes. Even if there is no appreciation at all in a given market, zero appreciation, or even negative appreciation, inflation is still there. So if inflation this year at least is 8%, on average, the cost of all goods, the avocados, the tomatoes, the rents, the home prices will go up by 8%. That's not appreciation. That's just inflation. When you go to Whole Foods today and you buy an avocado, nice big organic avocado for $2.25, we all know that in 10 years it's probably going to cost $4. It's not like we can say there was appreciation in the avocado sector. No, it's just inflation. Everything goes up with inflation. So, Jan, I think your calculations are very modest and your market is very popular. You have some very good questions here that I would like to take, but this is not for now. Now I want to bring in a market where we are closing in on 2,000 homes bought over 18 years. The very, very powerful and strong market in Oklahoma City. And without further ado, the head of the team, Joe Pryor. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Addie. Good to be here. Let me get myself shared here and see if I can figure out what I'm doing. All right. So I'm here to talk about two markets today. I'm going to be doing the Tulsa presentation a little bit later, and I'll explain that why. But Oklahoma City. So let's kind of get going here. And this is something I share every time because, you know, what is the goal that we have for you? What are we dedicated to? Excuse me, I think that went a little bit too far. All right, we want you to retire on your own terms. If you want to retire, myself, I don't want to retire, but if I needed to retire today, I could. Real estate has gotten me there. You know, paying for your children's college education, freeing them from any kind of student loans in the future. Most importantly, in our calculations, we know most of the people that buy in Oklahoma City hold. In fact, people from 2004 are still holding their properties here that they bought. But in the next 7-10 years, what is your wealth position per home? And that's what we're very, very concerned about and what we do the numbers on. And then I'm going to show you why this is the best hedge against inflation versus anything else that you can do. And also, I want you to be able to sleep at night. So I want you to have an investment that you don't worry about. In fact, you forget about. That's the best investment you can have. I can promise you, being in the stock market, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, sometimes I'm not sleeping too well at this point. But we have obstacles, one of which is rising interest rates. You've already seen that happen. There's 2 more interest rate increases coming before the end of the year. And it's a concern to all of us. And it's a question going, wow, what do we do with these interest rates? Also, there's anxiety. You know, what do I do with my money? Do I just sit on it? Do I invest in something? There's anxiety about this because we want to make the right decisions. Also, what down payment makes sense? You know, a year ago, you might think, oh, I'll do the 15% down. Now you're thinking about the 25. Does that make sense? So you're looking at those ideas to go, what do I do? What is the best object here? And then a big question that a lot of you were asking, should I invest now or should I wait? And we'll deal with that. And the other question is, people constantly ask me, well, what do you think? Well, housing prices come down. And the answer is, in some cases, yes. Some cases, no. Some markets will. Oklahoma City, since 2000, has not been one of those markets. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. So where do I put my money if inflation stays at, say, 9%? It's been as high as 9%. So let's just sit on our money. Let's just keep it in a bank account, nice and safe, insured by the FDIC. You've now just lost 9% of your buying power. In other words, it's 9% less every time you don't do something with it. Well, I'll put it in a CD. Let's say that's 2%. Well, now you're losing 7%, and you have to pay taxes on the 2%. The stock market, guys, it's driving me nuts. I look at it every day. I can't help myself. When it's supposed to be down, it's up. When it's supposed to be up, it's down. Some things are doing okay. A lot of things are not. And so it's a very volatile market. And maybe you want something a little bit more consistent. Treasuries, great investment, very consistent, but again, low yield. So for a minute, let's take an example of a property and see what it does if we invest in real estate on a low cash flow or no cash flow, as Addie was talking about. Now, this house just sold just a little while ago. And so I'm using it still as the example because we do this on everything that we recommend. And, you know, if you take a 20% down payment here, where you're going to pay a little bit higher interest rate, the before tax cash flow is $211 a year. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but we're putting a vacancy allowance, we're putting in management, we're putting in material cost, and when you have to make some changes or do other things. But look at your after-tax profit of $2,030. How can I have this more? It's because you get benefits when you invest in real estate, like your depreciation schedule. The IRS is really getting you off the hook for paying taxes when you invest in real estate. So let's say we sell it at the end of 7 years, and this is what this is based on. Like I say, the 7 to 10 year investment. Okay, so this is including hiring me to sell your property and paying those costs that you're going to pay when you sell. You're talking about after-tax 14.81% annually. That's what you're making on your money every year. Now, you've got a 1031 expert coming up later, and this is a great way to maximize your investment. So if you do a 1031, you don't have to pay those 2 taxes that you have to pay when you sell, the recapture tax on your depreciation, the capital gains. You're making 21%, over 21% every year on your money with something that is low cash flow or no cash flow. This is the best use in terms of making your money work for you. And we're including vacancy, management, maintenance. Everything is in here, including the selling costs. This is why real estate right now, I think, is extremely important. So we have a lot of ways that we can help you out. We have everything mapped out so you can see where everything is. We have video walking tours of every home builder that we do business with. I like to do Zoom meetings with you. I'd rather do that than a phone call. It's a little bit more personal. We can share screens. We can do a lot. And then the return on investment metrics, which you saw just a little bit earlier. It's extremely important that we work these numbers. This has got to make sense. It's got to make sense to you. It's got to make sense to me before we ever do anything with you. Now, leasing has been terrific. Rents were up last year about 5 to 10%. They're still going up. I'll tell you in a minute why they're going to go up some more. Get this. Josh Farmer of Camber, our main property manager, and he manages over 1,000 properties. I don't know where he is exactly right now, but I know it's over 1,000. Since April of 2020, the beginning of tracking, COVID for us, one eviction in all of that particular period of time. That's a great property manager. I love a great property manager because they make us look good and they're critical for your success. The vacancy rates are lower because of Josh. They are outstanding in their marketing. We're getting a lot of 2-year leases. He'd rather have longer leases versus new renters. And that's a little different than most property managers. And rents are going to continue to rise. Understand this, if there's 2 more rises in rates before the end of the year, which is what's expected, a lot of people are not going to be buying their first homes. And guess what? They get thrown into the rental pool. And what that means is the law of supply and demand works again. More renters, higher rents. And this is what's coming in 2023. You're going to see rents rise pretty darn good in good neighborhoods and good areas again. We're a team. We're a group of specialists. Most all of us are investors. The property manager's investor. My team's investing. The insurance guy is investing. Everybody is involved and is first class. Our main inspector has been doing ICG properties for 18 years. And so he knows the drill and knows how to take care of you. We do a lot of analysis. We have checks and balances. For instance, Josh Farmer, the property manager, if he says no to me on a property, it's no. He gets veto power, mainly because that's the key to success. What's good on paper has got to be good in reality. And the property manager makes that happen. And we make sure that you have the proper insurance. We don't want to dumb down insurance to make our numbers look good to get you to buy something. And because things happen, fires happen, all sorts of things can happen. And we want to make sure that you're properly insured. And again, my insurance agent is a major investor, so he understands what your needs are.
Joe, I'm sorry to just interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah.
You have an image on the upper right hand of your screen, which, that's it. You got rid of it. Thank you.
Okay. I don't even know what it was. Hopefully it was PG or G. Okay. So I've been in this business for 34 years. It's all that I do is investment real estate. I'm completely devoted to it. Our plan is about you. You tell me what your needs are. You tell me what you're trying to accomplish, and we're going to work a plan for you. I don't like to lose money. I have lost money in the past. I do everything that I can to make sure that you don't, because it's not a good feeling. And again, like I said last time, this is 18 years now with ICG and Addie. I'm very, very proud of that factor. That's a marriage that works. And it's a group of investors that I've had the pleasure to do business with. Okay, so let's go into homes. Now, by the way, you're going to see different builders here, and everything that I'm presenting can close either now or by the end of the year. Everything that you're seeing can close now. This is not the future. Todd is our #1 builder. He is the best builder. He's the higher end builder. His houses are fabulous. When you see his videos, you'll understand. He's one of the most respected people. He's a great business person. He's the only builder without an ego. He just loves to build, and he's hands-on. Quartz counters, custom cabinetry, a lot of extras. And when you see these prices, fence blinds and garage door openers, everything that you need to make it rent ready are included. We have a neighborhood called Royal Gardens. It is a gated community in the Yukon school system, one of our most popular school systems attached to the Oklahoma City area. The prices on these 2 houses, these larger 4 bedrooms, are $309,900 and $314,900. From an appreciation point of view, if you keep this property for 7 years, a Todd Cooper, and you want to sell it, it is going to be the most desirable property that you can sell. People, when they see these homes, love these homes. When I resell them, they sell quickly, and they are still selling quickly. So Todd Cooper, terrific builder. These should be done November and December. We have, I think, about 4 left. Roush Coleman, and we're really happy to have them back. The reason why is they're the most affordable builder in Oklahoma. Nobody builds what they do, and you'll see that in just a minute. They're a strong builder. They're in 8 states. They have a 210 warranty, which is a national warranty company, gives you a comprehensive 2-year warranty, plus a 10-year warranty on their post-tension slab foundation that comes with every home. Right now, we have 3 locations to choose from. Did I mention that their prices are good? Well, the one property you're going to see is just a little over $200,000. The others go up to about $253,000, $149,000. I'm not presenting everything that we have, but we have a lot of Roush Coleman that we can sell you right now. River Mist and Hera, actually, I told you that the Lowell was sold. It's positive cash flow. The Carnegie is a small 4-bedroom that does well. And by the way, I just told me that they got a second Carnegie back. What's happening with these interest rates is first-time buyers, it's busting their ratios. They're asking us to resell them. So we have 2 of the Carnegies. River Mist and Hera is attached to the southeast side of Oklahoma City. It's a growing area. There's a turnpike just expanding into it. And it is a growth area right now and will be a future growth area. Again, you can see the affordability factor in terms of what the prices are. Skyline East is in Stillwater. Stillwater is a city that is halfway between Oklahoma City and Tulsa. One thing is it's the home of Oklahoma State University, which is the 2nd largest university in the state of Oklahoma. What we've been impressed with is what the property manager up there has been able to get. Now, the thing is, again, you can see, again, a 1,690 square foot 4-bedroom for $245,440. Incredibly affordable. And the property manager has gotten as much as $1.20 a square foot. Now, we didn't factor that in. We factored in a lower amount, I think about $1.13. Why? Well, he hasn't seen quantity yet in terms of what we're going to add to the inventory. Not a lot, but still more. And also, the 4th quarter is going to be a little bit lower in rent than it is, say, May of next year. And by the way, one of the things our property managers emphasize is if you get a lease in November, we don't want to do a 1-year lease to the next November. We want to do a 6-month lease, an 8-month lease, an 18-month lease, or whatever. So what we're going to do after that first one is we're going to get you into a different time of the year. And this is what a good property manager does. But even with us lowering the amount that the rentals are going to be, you can still see outstanding cash flow being delivered to you, even with the higher interest rates. All right, so these are the 2. I don't know if did I do this before? I'm starting to lose track here. But anyway, these are the ones, and I think maybe did I do it? Okay, there I go. So I'm old, but technology comes to me maybe slower than others. All right, Settlers Crossing in El Reno. This is a city that is just west of the main area of Oklahoma City. We have been in this area before. It's been a few years. This is the last section that's being built out. So again, another neighborhood that's going to be completed. Look at the prices here. If you've been looking for something that is not too expensive in new construction, this is what you want. These are 3 bedrooms. I've got 2 of each. I've got 2 Fosters and 2 Murrows. They're a little different in price because they're a little different in terms of what's going into the homes, but they're all outstanding. I'm going to get hopefully a few more. I've asked for about 3 more houses. Again, there's not a lot left, but I should next week getting about 3 more houses in Settlers Crossing. But again, if you're looking for something at $210,000 and you thought it was gone, it isn't gone. All right, finally, D.R. Horton, largest builder in North America, smart house technology. Everything is included on the Hortons, granite counters, steel tubs, tile, fence blinds, everything is there. Dot Brook is in Piedmont on the north side. That's the hottest school system we've got in Oklahoma City right now. And these are the prices. And we've got 7 homes. I'm going to feature 2 of the larger ones. the Texas Cali and the Kingston, because they've been very popular and they've worked well for us. You can see the 262,990, the 278,990. You can see that you're buying a larger home. These are all single stories. We're not doing 2 stories. 1796, 2031. Again, you can see positive cash flow. It's an excellent area, excellent neighborhood. The elementary school, which is the newest and largest in Piedmont, right down the street. I highly recommend this. We have 7 homes total. These are some that we're featuring. So if you sign up with Addy, you're always going to have property availability, and he's going to give your information to us. We send out quarterly newsletters to all the investors, whether you bought or not. And it's not a sale newsletter. It is economics, demographics, vital statistics, excuse me, what's going on. And we have a new investment. Well, it's not new anymore. I said it's new. It's the website. It has instructional videos to kind of help you learn a little bit. We also have a 3-part video update on pricing rates and return on investments. You'll see my YouTube channel. I post about 6 to 8 videos every month on the YouTube channel to keep you up with what's going on. So summarizing everything we've just been through, Oklahoma City has one of the finest affordability indexes in the United States. The last time I checked, metro areas to over 1 million. We're the 4th most affordable city in the United States. It's extremely important to you right now with some of these areas that have gone crazy on prices. Please take advantage of these current rates. These are a lot of these homes that I have right now. You can lock your interest rate now, put it under contract, get the thing locked on a 60-day lock, because believe me, it is going up. Leasing is up, vacancy is down, rents are rising. This is in your benefit. Again, remember the supply and demand of rentals. More people are going into the rental pool because of the rising interest rates. This benefits the investor. It also helps these builders want to do more business with us. Long-term return on investment is still good. I showed one that's 21% per year. If you do a 1031 after 7 years, every year getting 21% on your money in a safe investment. Everybody's got to live somewhere, be it an owner-occupant or a renter. It's a backbone of the American economy. And it gives you predictable returns. It's not something like day trading or something that you've got to constantly watch. It's something that hopefully we're going to do such a good job for you that you're going to forget you own it until the money goes into your account. And I still think that right now, it's what we're doing ourselves more than anything else is looking. I'm in a much better cash position. I've been putting things in cash out of the stock market, mainly because real estate is where I want to put my money right now, is where the profit is. If you want to contact us, I have a YouTube channel. This PowerPoint is available to you through me, or Addy has a copy of it. That's the virtualrealestateteam.com is our website. These are the 2 email addresses. Joe at VREteam.com is me. Angela at VREteam.com. She's our Steph Curry, by the way. She's our point guard. She's that good. Well, I think she is. I don't know. Steph Curry may be the best. But I tell you what, she's close. And she is going to be your point guard of everything that goes on. But I'm happy to talk to you at any time. So it's good to be back. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you, hearing from you. We hope we have some great stuff for you. So let us know.
Thank you very much, Joe. I just want to tell everyone that we have some very good questions here. And the last part of the day is I'll have about 40 minutes to take your questions, to tell you about things and all of that stuff. One little mention that I will make here is that people ask me about what is our quick list. Our quick list used to be where the markets would send me properties every week and I would share it with you. In the past year, there was a shortage. So, I mean, we didn't send a lot of properties, just we told you about our events. We invite you to things, but we're going to be starting to get more properties. So if you want to join our quick list, just send us an email, info@icgre.com. In the subject line, write quick list. You'll get updates. You'll get properties from time to time. Most people think it's quite useful. Thank you so much. Without further ado, I'd like to bring up Gene Gillen from the Central Florida market, where we've also been buying since, in fact, I started buying in Central Florida in 1992. Been working with Gene since 2004. So without further ado, Jean, hi.
Hi, Addie. Nice to talk with you. Nice to see everybody. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Okay, great. I'm getting better at this. So Addie and I have been working together since about 2003. I've been a realtor for 40 plus years. I'm in the great state of Florida. And there's a lot of reasons people are moving here. I can honestly tell you that it's unbelievable how many people are moving here. Last year, it took 10 days to get a lease on a house. This year, it's 8. So there's a reason why all of our houses that we sell here have built-in equity. The day you sign your contract, there's somewhere between $30,000 and $75,000 worth of equity in your house. And I can show you that through comps. The reason why the builders do that is they don't have to do marketing. They don't have to have a model. They don't have to have sales first. They don't have to worry about color schemes. They don't have to worry about anything. You buy it as is, but it contains everything. Okay, so our houses are complete. They're tenant resilient. Everything has hard surfaces. So that we're going to talk about 2 corridors today. Now, you've all heard about Florida. Yesterday, the announcement was that Florida has a surplus of $21.8 billion in their budget. We don't have state income tax. So there's a lot of reasons companies are coming here. We're very friendly to business. And I probably don't have to go through everything, but Addie has this presentation. You can feel free to call me anytime and I will explain it. So we're going to talk about Palm Bay. This is Space Coast. And I know that you've heard all about Space Coast. You've heard about Elon Musk. You've heard about Blue Origin. You've heard about the other 400 new companies that have come to Space Coast. And it's very interesting. The Melbourne Airport, which is right here, they're doing a renovation so that it can hold another 150,000 passengers a year. Now, looking at this, the America's best job markets in 2022. So you see Reno, you see Boise, you see Salt Lake City, Naples, Florida, and number 10 is Palm Bay. The reason why is because there's a lot of jobs. I used to have a very difficult time explaining to engineers why. They just call me up and buy. Why? Because they can go on and see the jobs that are around there. And we have NASA, we have Kennedy Space Center, we have Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, all of these companies right there. So why do companies come to Florida? I kind of just told you all that. But another thing is that it's the only place you can put a man into space in the United States. So that has a lot to do with it. Now we have Space Force. So Patrick Air Force Base now is called Space Force Base. So it's kind of interesting. You can see all these people there. You know them all. You know what's going on. I can tell you that just about every week, Space X sends up another rocket. I mean, we go out in our boat and watch them go up. There's going to be a big one. There's supposed to be a big one the other day. And that'll be at the end of October, but they are putting one up tonight. So it's an A- area. You know, every area in Florida has an A-rated school. We have terrible schools in Florida, but that's because people are coming from all over the world. So they start out in elementary school. They can't speak the language. By high school, voila, the high schools are good. Voila, the universities are fabulous. So that's why. But if you want an A-rated school for free, you just send your kid to a charter school and make yourself available. So this is our 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We have different models. I don't have time to go through all of them, but I'm going to give you the least expensive one. This is $249,000 or $259,000, depending how you buy it. You get $10,000 off for cash. Now, as Addie was saying, okay, this I have it down as a 6.5% loan. Now you can buy that down, but if you just did the 6.5, this is what you would come out. No one is buying houses, I don't believe, because they want to live on $182 or $382 a month. Now it's important if you're buying a used house because the water heater might go out, you might need a new roof, you might need some kind of repair. But Addie has made it for you guys that you're buying all new houses, 90%, I'm sure. And when you buy a new house, you get a new roof, you have new air conditioning and heat here, new appliances, everything is included. So it's a really good opportunity for you. I want to show you the insurance. This is a house in Palm Bay, okay? And it's $90 a month for insurance, okay? If you get a different insurance, maybe it's only $60, but this is the insurance I recommend. Why is it so inexpensive and it also carries your hurricane insurance? Because it's built to 2022 codes, now 2023 codes. So the glass on your windows, 160-mile-an-hour hit, won't break. They have hip roofs and a lot of other things. So this is a 3.2, and it rents for somewhere between $2,000 and $2,200, okay? If you go to rent a meter, it's gonna say it's $2,400. I'm being conservative. So then we have a bigger one, and that is $299 or $285, depending how you buy it. This is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and everything is included in these houses. And all of these houses are built on what we call infill lots. What's an infill lot? You go down the street, and all the houses are there. And in Palm Bay, the average house is 25 years old, and there's a lot amongst all these houses that are built. That's the lot the builder will buy, okay? And it's very interesting. The lots have gone from 15,000. We just bought 26 of them the other day. The average was about 40. Okay, so here are the comps, and I want you to look at them so you know that I'm telling the truth, and I can send you more. Here's a 4-bedroom, 3-bed, 1,600 square foot. Ours is 1,725 for 364. Okay, one of these is Holiday Builders, the other is another builder. Then this one over here, this is a 3.2, 372. Our 3.2, 249 or 259. Our 4.2, 285 or 299. That's Palm Bay. You can't miss with Palm Bay. I just bought 5 of them. I actually did an interesting loan I can explain to you later. It's called a construction to perm loan. I locked my rate now. I close in 60 days. It gets built. The bank watches the building, and I get my house. So these are the finishes. I think just about everybody that you've been seeing their houses, it's pretty much the same finishes. Now we have the I-4 corridor, which goes from Tampa to Daytona. And we're going to talk about Kissimmee, Ponciana, which is right here. Now, if you think, and I've said this before, Disney is not in Orlando. You get off the plane in Orlando and you drive for 45 minutes to get to Disney. Disney is in Kissimmee and Ponciana. So this is the house. This house is absolutely stunning. People drive by. You can now. I put them down for about $22.50 for the rent. They're actually right now bidding on. There's bidding wars on rents. The rents in Palm Bay, for example, went up 26% 2 years ago. The average house was 25 years old, and 28% of the people rent. That's a pretty good thing. Okay, so now we're in Ponciana. That's where Disney is, and these are the jobs. There are a huge amount of jobs. Amazon, Publix, Nucor Steel, Frito-Lay. You can see them, and I can give you more. There's jobs galore. There's a single-family house there. The price is $360 on the market, which I will show you. $310 to our buyers, depending on, you can buy it with how you buy it. If you, well, this is the same for cash or for finance. This is the house. Again, this is, okay, so here's a comp. The same house sold on 6/2/22 for $380. And I was telling you that it was worth $360. It sold for $380, and you can buy it for $310. That's built-in equity. There's 2 things people are always asking. Well, what happens if we have a market correction? Guess what? Nothing. First of all, nothing, because it doesn't matter. You have a locked-in, as Addie said, a locked-in 30-year mortgage. That's what you're getting. And somebody else is paying it off, okay? So if there's a market correction, you'll be fine anyway, because unless it goes down more than 25%, you're just fine. So here's the interiors. They're very beautiful, tiled floors. You can see the tiles on the back of the bathrooms, very, very beautiful. Okay, the next place we're going is to Ocala. Ocala is the horse capital of the United States. When you go to any horse show, if the thoroughbreds are running, that's where they came from. I didn't know that till I went to Ocala. We have an area here, up here, called Rainbow Lake Estates. You can buy a house there for $229. If you pay cash, you get $10,000 off. It just is a great area. Down here, we have in Ocklawaha, 20 minutes from the Villages, which is the largest retirement community in the United States. And those houses are the same, $229 or $219. Then we have, so we have those for right now. That's all I'm going to tell you about because we don't have time. So this is the house and it's a very nice little house, and it rents overnight. I just rented one for $17.99 in Ocala, and I rented another one for $16.30 in Ocklawaha. Okay, so now the Rainbow Lake Estates, $229 or $219. Now, again, the insurance is $57. The property taxes are $275. I've got 25% down with a 6.5 mortgage. Yes, you can buy it down. With one of the loan that I'm doing, which is the construction of perm loan, it automatically goes down before the perm sets in. So if by chance the interest rates go down, I get it without doing anything. Now remember, all of these houses are brand new, so it doesn't matter. This is $100 or $200 is not going to change your life, as Addie said. What's going to change your life is investing and having somebody else pay this off for you. Okay, then we have some duplexes in Sebring. They're huge. They're 3 bedrooms, 2 bath each side. Very, very nice. These are the finishes. And this is the cash flow sheet. They take a long time to build. Now, let me just tell you, the houses in Ponciana, that gentleman has about 4 houses that are all ready to go right now if you want to buy them. The guy in Palm Bay, good friend of mine for 20 years, and he builds very quickly also. And the guy in Ocklawaha, Ocala, that area, slow as molasses, like pond water. So you have to be very patient, but he builds a great house. So then we have, this is an interesting concept. I know a lot of people ask me for triplexes and everything, but here is 3 houses on one half-acre lot, or a little bit more, okay? They're individual houses, but you get one property ID, so you can get one mortgage. It also gives you a good opportunity for a different way to sell it at the end, because somebody could live in one house, rent out the others. So that's a really good different way to get.
Jean, there's a question here for you. Please explain what a construction to perm loan is briefly.
Okay, so a construction to perm loan is very interesting. There's only, I went into about 5 or 6 different places trying to find it. So I found one, it's a local bank. And what they do is you have to put 25% down. So I choose my house, I put my 25% down, and then the loan will close in 45, 60, 60, 65, 70 days, whenever the builder is ready to put the shovel in to do the platform, okay? And before that, he's bought the lot, cleaned the lot, put in all the electricity, everything is getting done, okay? But it doesn't start, you cannot close, well, you can, but we don't close until the builder is ready to build. Now, the builder is ready to build and you close and you lock in your loan. So say you lock in your loan at 6.5%. You can, at that moment, buy it down and that's fine. But if, for example, when the house is done, and we say it's going to be done in about 4 months, okay, maybe 5 at the most. If for some reason the interest rates go down, the bank automatically modifies it. So say I lock in for 6.5%, all of a sudden it's December, January, and I'm getting my house and the rates go down.
Jim, this is long. You are just about at the end of your time.
Okay. So anyway, long story short, that's what it said. It is. I've had lots of people apply for it. Everybody's gotten it. Unless you don't work, then you can't get it. And I can explain it to you, be glad to. Now, the other thing, that last part of this is property management. We do everything. This is my son, Tom. This is one of my investors, Ben Sensabaugh, who used to work at NASA. He's an engineer. And I have to again thank Addie for helping my son and making him start this company back in 2008. He's very successful due to all of what Addie's done. So Addie has this presentation. Please feel free to call me, 321-947-0912. Whatever you need, call me, email me, just we can talk.
Thank you so much, Jean, for your presentation. Okay, so there are good questions both in the Q&A and in the chat. I would love to talk about them right now, but we have a timetable. So again, I'm going to have about 40 minutes at the end of the day. I'll take all the questions. If there's time here and there, I'll grab one. But for now, we are going to bring in an expert who's spoken to us many times, works with our investors. The issue of tax-deferred exchanges, 1031 exchanges, something very, very good to know about, something that we see a lot these days where somebody says, I bought a home in Phoenix, and now it's worth 500,000. And for the person who asks, what does it mean the numbers work? Buying a brand new home in Phoenix right now is 500,000, and the rent is going to be about 2,400. Numbers don't work. So in this market, the ratio is just a little more normal. That's all we need. So without further ado, to talk about the 1031 exchange, I will bring up Mr. Weiming Peng. Weiming?
Hi, Adiel. Thank you very much for having me here today. I am still seeing if I can put on the video. Oh, perfect. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Weiming, and I am with Asset Preservation, Inc. And today I'll be talking about the tax deferral strategy, 1031 exchange, well, section 1031 exchange of the Internal Revenue Code. Let me see if I can actually get this. Is it F5 that starts it? Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Because this line is, oh, there we go. Okay, this slide, I can start from the beginning. Perfect. So, hi everybody, my name is Weiming, and I am with Asset Preservation, Inc. We are a 1031 exchange company, and the only thing we do is 1031 exchanges. Resume share. Can I share now? Yes. Perfect. Now, just a disclaimer, I am not a CPA. I am not a financial advisor. Again, the only thing we do is 1031 exchanges. The tax-related information that you are about to see today that I am going to present are a more general information for 1031 exchanges. They may not be specifically to your situation. I don't know things like your specific tax rate. I do not know what your tax bracket is. All those you can talk to a CPA or financial advisor to get that information. But let's jump right into 1031 exchanges. What is a 1031 exchange? A 1031 exchange is a tax deferral strategy that allows you to defer up to 100% of your tax liability when you sell your investment property. And again, I say up to 100%. You don't have to do a full exchange to defer all your taxes. I do have some clients who will occasionally buy a property of lesser value and pay taxes on the difference. Now, today we are going to be covering a number of topics, or as much as we can today in the limited time that I do have. I'm going to be covering the different types of exchanges a user can use, and I'm going to be talking about the key points to keep in mind for a successful 1031 exchange. Now, diving into it, a lot of times clients will ask me, Wei Ming, what are some of the good reasons why an investor should consider a 1031 exchange? Well, there are a number of reasons. I have them listed here. They are capital gains tax deferral. It allows you, again, to defer up to 100% of your capital gains taxes. It allows you to diversify your portfolio. And the speakers before me, they have talked about buying properties out of state. Great. This is one of the uses for 1031 exchange. I'll give you an example. If you happen to have a property in California, anywhere in the United States, and it has appreciated in value, maybe you want to sell that property and split the equity towards multiple replacement properties. You can do that in a 1031 exchange. As a matter of fact, you're going to hear the term like kind a lot when talking about 1031 exchange. You have to buy a property of like kind once you sell your investment property. What does that mean? Well, like kind means any investment property anywhere in the United States. So that means you can go out and buy a residential property, you can buy commercial properties, you can buy land if you wanted to, but it allows you to diversify your portfolio. Sell that one property that has appreciated in value in California and purchase multiples outside of California. You can buy a couple in Florida, for example. It also has the potential to help you to increase that cash flow that you're looking for. The reason that a lot of the speakers that spoke before me were talking about their property in their market is because it gives you that cash flow that you might be looking for. So go ahead, you can sell a property that may not be cash flowing to your liking, and you can purchase multiple investment properties that will give you that cash flow that you're looking for. As I also mentioned, like kind property is number 4. Any investment property anywhere in the United States. Now, the last thing I get a lot is I get a lot of referrals from CPAs who often tell my client, hey, client, you have owned your property and rented it out for the last 10, 15, 20 plus years. You have depreciated a lot of your property. What that essentially means in a simplified version is if I have rented out my property for a number of years, I've taken depreciation. Every year that I take a depreciation, it's essentially a write-off against my income. If I say I make $100,000 a year and I have a $10,000 depreciation, I'm basically paying income tax on $90,000 in a simplified version. And once you have fully depreciated your property, I'm no longer taking that depreciation. Or if you're getting close to it, your CPA may say, well, Wei Ming, your property has appreciated so much in value. Why don't you go out and buy even more expensive properties, leverage that money to buy higher value properties, and that additional equity you purchase, that's also depreciable. So that allows me to take more depreciation, essentially more write-off against my income. Now, one of the things that I encounter a lot on a daily basis is clients will often call me and say, hey, Wei Ming, I'm considering doing a 1031 exchange, and how much do I owe in taxes? I often tell my clients, if you're considering an exchange, on average, you're probably looking at about 33% or a third of for your capital gains tax rate. Well, I often get a reply hey, Wei Ming, I've been doing some Google research. I found out that I owe 15 or 20% in taxes. Why are you telling me it's about 33%? Well, that may be the case, but what clients typically find on a Google research is that the 15 or 20% is referring to federal capital gains taxes. They have not potentially dug any deeper and found out that when talking about capital gains taxes, it's actually referring to a combination of 4 taxes. They are depreciation recapture tax, there's federal taxes, there's net investment income tax, and there's state taxes. Now, on average, that might be about 33%. If you're probably selling in California, if you're selling out, that might be a little lower on average. But again, it's about 33%. So that's when clients really consider a 1031 exchange. When they initially thought, hey, if I make $200,000, 15% of that isn't too bad, isn't going to kill me. But if I tell you it's closer to 1/3, now you might be considering a 1031 exchange. And ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into a little more about what the exchange also do for you. To many clients, it's I get to use a 1031 exchange to defer my taxes, and basically I don't have to pay it now. It's an IOU to Uncle Sam. This allows you to use all that money that would have otherwise gone to taxes to allow you to buy even more real estate, to buy higher value real estate, and into areas that you see appreciation or you see a better cash flow for you. But what about all these taxes that I'm deferring and all these IOUs to Uncle Sam? Well, essentially, these keep racking up as you keep on doing your 1031 exchanges. Now, when I pass away, all this dies with me. It passes with me. My heirs, whoever gets my property, do not have to pay any of the deferred taxes that I have accumulated in my lifetime.
Somebody asked me, what do you mean the numbers work or they don't work? This is not an exact formula. But when you buy a home in Oklahoma City for $240 and it rents for $1,650 a month, that's a ratio. When you buy a home in Las Vegas for $540 and it rents for $2,500 a month, that's a different ratio, not as good. It's not a science. It's just generally some of those markets like Vegas, Phoenix, Dallas, Austin, etc., are markets where it's good to sell now, not to buy. Somebody asked me if we can assist foreigners in getting 30-year fixed rate loan. The answer is yes. We can connect you to a lender who does loans for foreigners. And I don't know what the interest rates will be. They're going to be higher than for American investors. So since American investors are now around, depending on the points paid, 6, 6.5, 6, I assume the foreigners will be at 7+, but again, we can check and see. Remember, if it's fixed, I don't even care if it's 10. It's all worked out very well. It's a long-term investments. Now, let's see. Yeah, sometimes duplexes come, but duplexes, you have to be careful. They need to be in a good area. In most places in the US, when you build duplexes, they're in not such good areas. New homes are much better than used home. I'll send you the article explaining why. Let's see, are there any markets in Europe or outside of the US that you would buy? Well, let me remind you, the only country in the world that I know of where they give you the gift called 30-year fixed rate loan, which is the heart and soul and the whole point of doing this, is one little country called the United States of America. So no, absolutely not interested in other countries. Europe, no. United States, 30-year fixed rate loan. Now, okay, Gene explained about construction to perm. People are asking if there are preferred lenders. It depends on the market. In some of the markets, the builders actually insist that the buyers use a lender that they know, usually local. So it's always best to ask the local realtor. Wei Ming, are you back?
Yes, sir. I apologize. It just shut it out for some reason. But I do have my slides back up. So as I was saying, if you do a quick Google research, you may not find all the taxes that you may owe. So it's always best to talk to a CPA or financial advisor to help you to calculate your specific and exact tax rate. Because I have seen anything from about 20% all the way up to about 40%. So that range is pretty large. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to quickly talk about an example and give you an example of how a typical 1031 exchange looks like. Here in this example, I am trying to find a couple of things. Is somebody moving this? In this example, I have a purchase price of $500,000. Now, I have owned this property for a number of years, and I have rented it out. So I'm going to go to my CPA and say, hey, John, how much have I depreciated my property so far? And he tells me, Wei Ming, it's about $100,000. Okay, great. I go to my realtor and I ask, how much can I sell my property for, and how much capital improvements should I make on this property? I'm told it's $25,000 of capital improvements, and I'll get a sales price of $100,000 after closing costs. Now, in this example, ladies and gentlemen, there are two things I am trying to find. Number one, I'm trying to find out what my adjusted basis is. And number two, I'm trying to figure out what my capital gains are. So in this example, purchase price of $500,000 and my depreciation is 100. Depreciation lowers my basis, but any capital improvements will increase that number. Remember, I put $25,000 of capital improvements into it. Now, this gives me an adjusted basis of $425. I sell my property and net $1 million after closing costs. If I subtract the $425, I will have a capital gains of $575,000. In my next slide, my CPA did all the calculation, and it came out to about $197,000. That is just about 33%. It's off by a couple $100, but maybe I might be making lower or less money than the average person or the average seller in California in this instance. But ladies and gentlemen, I have this copy of this slide sent to Adiel, and on this slide, I have on a link to our website with a capital gains tax calculator. You can punch in your own numbers, your own tax brackets, and your own tax rates, and it will give you an idea of what your capital gains taxes are. It will get very close to it. So that way, it helps you to make an informed decision whether or not you may want to proceed with a 1031 exchange. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me talk about the types of exchanges available to you as an investor. Now, there are a number of types of exchanges. The first one is called the simultaneous exchange. It used to be the only type of exchange available, not anymore. The simultaneous exchange is when you close on the sale property and the purchase property on the same day. Now, as you know, in our current market, that's going to be pretty difficult to do. Now, do I still see it? Absolutely. There are a number of clients who may want to close on the replacement property sooner on the same day. For example, maybe because they have a tenant that may want to rent out from them, or they may want to rent out to family. I see that all the time. I see clients renting to their kids when they buy a property near a college that their kids are going to. Whatever the reason, if you choose to close on the same day, that is called a simultaneous exchange. What most clients end up doing is called a delayed exchange or a regular 1031 exchange. This is when you close on the property you're selling, and from the close of escrow, have 45 days to identify and a total of 180 days to close on a replacement property. In our current market, that might be difficult for some clients. So some clients may actually choose to do what's called the reverse 1031 exchange. In a reverse exchange, you can close on the replacement property first, then from the close of escrow, have 180 calendar days to sell and close your property. Complete opposite. So 180. The fourth type of exchange is called the construction or improvement exchange. In this 1031 exchange, I can say, if I sold and net a property of $1 million, if I end up buying a property at, say, $900,000, I can use that remaining difference to make capital improvements on the $900,000 I'm buying. And I have to spend those funds and complete those improvements within the 180 days. So that's great if you might have some leftover funds, or you can even buy a piece of land and start working on and building on that property itself. The last type of exchange I want to talk about is the reverse construction. This is just as its name suggests. This is where you buy the replacement property first and start improvement on it within the 180 days. And you also have that 180 days to sell and close your property as well. So ladies and gentlemen, there are a key number of points to keep in mind when doing a 1031 exchange, and they are property qualifications, tax deferral requirements, timeline, and identification rules. What qualifies for a 1031 exchange? Well, any property that has been used for business, investment, or trade use will qualify for a 1031 exchange. So if you use a property, let's say a commercial property as for your company, for example, your company is using it, or if you have a warehouse that your company is storing business equipment or goods in, that will work as well. It's not just for rental properties. So any investment properties, any property used for business or trade use will qualify. A lot of times clients will tell me, Wei Ming, how long do I need to rent it out for? How long do I need to use it for business or trade use? I hear 1 year and I also hear 2 years. What is the correct answer? Well, they both work. In the Internal Revenue Code, there is no specified time that you have to hold those properties for 1 year or 2 years. It's just what a lot of CPAs would recommend. Now, there are some CPAs that will recommend 1 year, and then there are even more CPAs that will recommend 2 years or longer. 2 years and longer are typically considered the more conservative route, and anything between a year or two, it's just a little aggressive. Doesn't disqualify you from doing a 1031 exchange, but if there's ever an audit, you just have to explain why they should consider your property held for business, investment, or trade use. Now, I also get clients asking, what if I don't have a year? Can I still do a 1031 exchange? The answer is yes, but anything less than a year, it's typically considered very, very aggressive. And there are not a lot of CPAs who will sign off on something like that on your tax returns. So speak with your CPA, see how aggressive or conservative they may be, and then decide whether or not a 1031 exchange is a right fit for you. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is tax deferral requirements. In order to defer all your capital gains taxes, you do need to spend all the cash proceeds and purchase equal or greater to your net sales price. I'll give you an example. Can I do that? Can I go back? I'll give you an example. If I sell my property for $1 million, I'm going to have to pay closing costs, right? Let's say my closing costs are $50,000. The agent fees, escrow fees, transfer tax, and recording fees. So I'll have to subtract all that. That gives me a net sales price of $950,000. Now, what if I have a $500,000 loan on this property? Well, that's going to be paid off, and my cash balance is going to be $450,000. Now, this is where a lot of clients get confused. They think, oh, Wei Ming, I'm only getting $450,000 cash. I only need to spend $450,000, right? Actually, no. You have to spend all the cash and purchase equal or greater to your net sales price, which is the $950,000. So how do I get the additional $500,000 to buy up to $950,000? Doesn't matter. I can come out of pocket if I have those funds, or I can go and get another loan. I can borrow from family. Does not matter where I get the money, as long as I'm spending the $450 in cash and buying equal or greater to $950,000. Now, the timeline for the 1031 exchange is from the close of escrow, I have 45 days to identify potential properties to purchase and a total of 180 days to complete my 1031 exchange and close on one of those properties. What do I mean by identify? We, the exchange company, will provide you with a form. You fill out that form with the top choices for replacement properties by day 45. Now, you can change whatever's on your list before day 45, but no changes for whatever reason after day 45. Well, how can I identify? What are the rules to identify? There's 3 ways that you can do so. Why isn't letting me? Oh, there we go. The first method is called the 3 property rule. It allows you to defer, the 3 property rule allows you to identify up to 3 properties of any value. This is great for investors who may not be looking to buy more than 3 properties. Now, the second rule is called the 200% rule. It allows you to identify as many properties as you would like, but the combined value cannot exceed 2 times what I sold my property for. So if I sell my property for $1 million, not the net sales price, but the sales price, 2 times that amount is $2 million. Now, if I'm buying properties out of state, I can probably get 4, maybe 5 properties with that amount. So that is essentially kind of like more bang for my buck. So if clients are looking to buy no more than 3, stick with the 3 property rule. If you're thinking about maybe identifying or buying more than 3 property, you may be utilizing the 200% rule. There is a third rule called the 95% rule. It sounds good, but extremely hard to use. It allows you to identify as many properties as you would like, no limit to the value, but you must purchase 95% of the total value of what you identify, or your whole exchange fails. So that's a little aggressive. I typically don't see this unless it's a portfolio transaction. And ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. There was a technical difficulty, so I know I am on the edge of the amount of time I have. But what I want everybody to get out of this is, what are some of the pros and cons about a 1031 exchange? I'm here to provide you with information. I'm not here to encourage you to do an exchange or not to do an exchange. That's up to you to decide. But I want to give you this chart that you can look at so that you can kind of make some comparisons and do your own calculation if you need to. In this example, I am comparing doing a 1031 exchange versus not doing a 1031 exchange. In this example, I am selling my property and netting $1 million. I have the adjusted basis I used before, the capital gains of 575, and I am going to use the average I talked about, 33%. If I do a 1031 exchange, I'm not paying any taxes, but I do have to pay my closing costs. Let's just say it's $100,000 instead of 50 I've been going with. That gets me $900,000. If I am doing a 1031 exchange, what can I buy? Real estate. I can only buy investment real estate held for business, investment, or trade use. So I have $900,000 in real estate, essentially. Now, what's the pros and cons? The pro is I haven't paid any taxes, and all that money is now working for me in real estate. Real estate will always appreciate over time. In the next 20, 30 years, whatever it may be, it will appreciate over time. In addition, I'm getting the cash flow that I want during this time. Now, what if I decide not to do an exchange because maybe the stock market is a little more tempting? Well, in this example, I'm not doing an exchange, but I'm not deferring any taxes either. I'm paying all my taxes. what I mentioned before, $197,000. This leaves me with barely $700,000 to work with. Now, if I put that money in stocks, let's make a comparison. Let's say, for example, I put $900,000 in real estate and my return is 5% for cash flow, or let's say that's net, not gross. 5% on $900,000, that's $45,000 a year. Now let's take a look at what happens if I put the $700,000 in stocks. Let's say stocks are doing a little better, right? Let's say it's doing 7%. What does that get me? Well, it gets me $49,000 a year. 49,000 is definitely better than 45, but here's the biggest difference. If I want to realize that $49,000 difference, I have to sell those stocks. I can't defer taxes on stocks by buying more real estate. If I sell those stocks, I'm paying taxes on that. In addition, that almost $200,000, how long is that going to take you to recoup that difference? Real estate allows me to refinance and pull out cash if I want to. Can I do that with stocks? I can't refinance stocks. Stocks is just stocks. I buy it, I sell it. That's it. But real estate has a lot of potential, and that is why a lot of investors utilize a 1031 exchange. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everybody for attending the 1031 exchange portion of this presentation. I understand that I am against my time at the last minute, and I want to give this back to Adiel. Thank you very, very much for having me here today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send that to me at any time.
Wei Ming, thank you so much. Very good. And now we're moving on right now. Normally we have Ginny Stoppa, the head of the team in Mobile, Alabama, a market that works very well, where we have been investing since 2006. The cash flows there, I think, are quite good. But Ginny is not here today. We have, Amy Slade. Amy Slade from the team, and yes, she will be presenting about the Mobile, Alabama metropolitan area. Go ahead, Amy, and welcome to this event.
Hello. Thank you so much.
If anybody wants to get that PowerPoint that we are not going to be seeing now, send us an email, info@icgre.com. I'll share it with you. Go ahead, Amy, and get started. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys. Jenny is out of town, and I am doing this for her. So we are on the Alabama Gulf Coast. It is the Mobile Bay area. So if you look up a map, that was my next slide. We are about 2 hours east of New Orleans, Louisiana, and about 2 hours west of Destin, Florida, right in the Mobile Bay. We have two counties. One is Baldwin County and one is Mobile County. We sell both of those counties, and we have several neighborhoods in both of those counties. So our industries here, and again, if you would like this PowerPoint, it is interactive. So when you click on the slide, you can click into the links to these websites that we were sharing. So Mobile is the 9th largest port in the United States. We have several industries here. The port, Austal, Airbus, and Airbus's suppliers. We are also gaining a new international airport in 2024. So that means we are going to be receiving a lot of influx of new business because it's easier to get here. We are also only within a half a day's drive from Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Memphis. Of course, New Orleans is only a couple of hours away. We're about 6 hours from Nashville, 8 hours from Tampa, Charlotte, and others. Baldwin County is the fastest growing county in Alabama. And we really saw a shift in our market after COVID, with a lot of people understanding that they can work from home now. And we are in a coastal area. So very desirable. Baldwin County is home to many industrial companies as well. I had a slide on the airfield that's being turned into the international airport. Also, Gulf Shores, Alabama, which is just south of us in our same county, right on the beach, has gotten a grant to increase their airport, which was not it was a private airport. Now it's becoming public. Scheduled to open in 2023. Novellas is also coming to Baldwin County, which is a very large aluminum plant that supplies industries like cola. So we will be seeing a lot of influx again of people needing homes. Okay, I talked about that. Another thing I wanted to talk about, which a lot of the investors, you guys typically have questions for me and Jenny on, is who are our major employers in Baldwin County? The Board of Education. So we have a very strong public school system in Baldwin County. It's at the top 3 in the state. Walmart is our second in line. Mobile Infirmary Health, which is a very large hospital system in Mobile. Collins Aerospace, which is in Foley, Alabama, just north of Gulf Shores, just south of us in Daphne. Columbia Southern University, the University of South Alabama, South Baldwin Regional Medical Center, again, another large hospital. Publix. OA, which is a new entertainment amusement park in Foley, and several others. Ace Hardware has come in and put in a new distribution center in our county, as well as Vulcan, and many others. My next slide was Aldi. Collins Aerospace and Airbus are our top employers in Baldwin County. Aldi is moving their industrial headquarters here. Again, Sweet Brew, eCovery, which is a refueling company, Kashan, which is a air compressor company, and Gulf Packaging are all here in Baldwin County. Then we go to Daphne. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. And we have several neighborhoods here, the main one being Jubilee Farms. We also have a neighborhood called Stonebridge, and some other smaller neighborhoods, and another large neighborhood in Mobile called Magnolia Springs. When you get these slides, we did present the most popular floor. Our area, 4 bedrooms is popular. We also have 3-bedroom plans. They come with I was on when the lady in Florida was speaking, and they come with either your granite, your stainless appliances, and those things. We also build to gold fortified here, which means your insurance is considerably less for new construction. So it cuts your insurance rates in half. And another popular thing for Alabama is our taxes are extremely low. The cost of living here is very affordable. So Jenny has been selling real estate for about 28 years. I've been in the business for 13. We have been together for 8. as business partners, and we have been here the whole time. She also owns, along with her husband, a rental property management company as well. So that's ease for you guys. We have that link there for you to roll right into your property management, and it's a one-stop shop. And that's what I have. And I just saw one question. We do have inventory here. So we just opened up a new phase in the largest neighborhood in Daphne, Jubilee Farms, and we will be ready to write in about 2 weeks in our area here. We do have several other neighborhoods that already have inventory in place for us. Approximate prices are in between $285,000 to $325,000, depending on the area and what is the size of the house and the finishes of the house.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
And we're gonna move to the Tulsa, Oklahoma market. Normally, the presentation would be by the local broker there, Dave Mumper, who works with Joe Pryor as well. So Joe Pryor is really the umbrella, over the entire state. And here is Joe once again. Hi, Joe, to talk about the Tulsa market.
Yeah, just when you thought I was, gone, here I am back again. So I'm proud to be here. So let me give a little information about Tulsa. Get my screen share here going. And excuse me, I always got to wait for this thing to go away. Okay, slideshow. All right. Welcome to Tulsa.
Hey, Joe, before you start, whatever you
Yes,
have
sir.
going on your right-hand side of your screen there, and your taskbar, your dock down there, both of those
Yeah.
things are showing up, like it just part of them, and it showed up in your last presentation. So I don't know what
Okay, they're
going
not,
on in your
I don't
screen,
understand that. They're not showing up on my
yeah,
screen.
just to let you know. So we might ask you to just refresh your screen as you go through your slides.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, Tulsa is the other major city in Oklahoma. Oklahoma City and Tulsa are 93 miles away, connected by a turnpike at about 80 miles an hour, about an hour and 15, hour and 30-minute difference between the two. I always tell people that if I was going to compare Tulsa and Oklahoma City to California, I think Oklahoma City would be more like Los Angeles and Tulsa would be a little bit more like San Francisco if you come there and you see kind of how the city looks, the topography, everything else. It's important, to me anyway, that we're dealing with cities that the metropolitan area is over 1 million. Oklahoma City is 1.4, Tulsa is 1 million. So those are our areas of concentration. Of course, the suburbs around there. They have 3 Fortune 500 companies. Google is now up to about $3 billion in investment. And aerospace, oil and gas, medical centers, manufacturing. It is like Oklahoma City, a diversified economy. Amazon is a major presence there, as it is in Oklahoma City, with a 4-story fulfillment center, 60,000 square feet delivery station, 270,000 square foot operating system city. So we did reach the 1 million in 2020. I think I'm kind of repeating myself here. Unemployment in both Oklahoma City and Tulsa, I didn't mention that before, but it's extremely low. 1.9% is currently what we're dealing with in the Tulsa market. Whirlpool is doing a major expansion. As I said, Google has also been doing expansions on their media center. BMX Racing, the headquarters, this has been popular for I don't know how long. And they just relocated their world headquarters in Tulsa. It's another major attraction and a lot of races going on. It's the Inc. magazine in the top 50 for a startup business. One thing I might mention is that Tulsa was the first city in the United States to start offering $10,000 and a free office space to any remote worker that wanted to come and live in Tulsa. And so it's been an innovative city in a lot of different ways in terms of increasing not only the population, but the kind of population that we're getting. It's one of the top cities for job creation. Tulsa Future Initiative is another thing. Both Oklahoma City and Tulsa do these special things, putting $1.1 billion into creating more jobs. So the city is very involved in terms of doing its own thing and putting its own money into the city. The Chamber of Commerce has an initiative that's increasing jobs. American Airlines just did a $550 billion expansion on their facility. This is the largest maintenance hub of anywhere in the world. And of course, that would obviously be a major employer. It's also on Route 66, which is a famous thing. Dave likes to mention this quite a bit. And but Oklahoma City and Tulsa, as you can see, are both on the route coming your way. All right, let me say one thing for a minute before I get into Roush Coleman. But there was an ancient Greek philosopher named Heraclitus, and he said the only constant in life is change. And I know Addie mentioned earlier just the difficulty we have with inventory. If rates have stayed low, you would not be able to buy things right now because we would probably be getting into a bubble, into a housing bubble. And the prices would keep rising and rents wouldn't make sense anymore. And that's one of the things that changes right now that I think really benefits you as an investor in terms of this is your time. And so I think that's extremely important to note. Now, the other thing I would note about change is where we went from no inventory. I would probably say between Oklahoma City and Tulsa, we have available before the end of the year 50 to 60 homes in these two markets. And so if you're looking for something that you can close quickly, that is another thing that has changed very dramatically, which is the amount of inventory all of a sudden. The reason why is if the owner occupants are not buying, again, as I said before, we are beautiful people, and this is who they want to do things with. So Roush Coleman is the 32nd largest builder in the U.S. You saw a presentation in Oklahoma City about it. Most of the homes have upgraded features, and Dave and Angela can make you more aware of that. Some of these homes have no siding whatsoever. They have to be all brick construction. Again, the 210 warranty. There's 3 neighborhoods right now, and most of these neighborhoods are complete. There's one with a new phase. And there's a reservation system, which is a little different than Oklahoma City, but it's $1,000 as a reservation. And then what we do is start working on your pre-qualification. This is an example of a Roush Coleman home. This is one that is currently being built, and also, as you can see, all brick construction. That's the standard, the standard construction in the Oklahoma market. We have 1 to 2 Tulsa lenders that have to be used, and we're working on getting a third that has really good rates, and we're hoping to have that approved soon. Price estimates in Tulsa is starting at about $220,000, maxing out at about a little over $286,000. The builder right now, they're doing Bixby, Owasso, and Broken Arrow. These are 3 very strong, powerful suburbs. This is where the money is. This is where the schools, the nice schools, the additions to the schools are being built. If they need a new orchestra room, they build a new orchestra room. This is where people want to live. And right now we have about a little over 30 homes for you to choose from in the Tulsa market. Now, we're not going to sell 30 homes to investors. We're always going to try to keep the percentages as low as possible. So what we're doing is letting you know that there's different plans that are available that you're not seeing on the presentation. I'm just going to present one in each neighborhood at this point. And then again, if you want our inventory, we'll send you the full list of everything that we have. Oh, and by the way, Dave is fishing up close to the Canadian border. It's a guide trip. It's an annual thing that these guys do, and very little internet operation up there. So anyway, he'll be back the next time, and he's coming back next week to answer any of your questions. Excuse me, I had a little procedure done on my nostrils yesterday, and I'm a little uncomfortable, but I'm doing okay. I don't recommend what I had done, so it's I just want you to know that. East Village, the Ross plan, is one of the most popular plans in Tulsa. It's 1,574 square feet. You can see what the price is, and cash flow is just, a little bit negative to positive. And again, as I said before, what we try to do is right now, we're tamping down the rents for a time of year. So they very easily can be $100 lower than they normally would be in the spring months. Oneida Farms, we've been extremely successful with. This is a new phase. The Magnolia plan is probably my favorite 4-bedroom plan that they do. They don't have a lot available, but this one is available. There is more than one that you can buy. It's $246,725. Also a very, very popular plan. And what we normally tell people is that you need a 4-bedroom, you're going to get a 4-bedroom because that is what you've got to have. If you have 2 children, that extra bedroom becomes a study or a playroom. Or if you have 3 children, they all have private bedrooms. The Magnolia is an outstanding plan. Conrad Farms. Of Conrad Farms, this is going to show the largest plan that we're presenting on this presentation. It's 1,823 square feet, a larger 4-bedroom, $273,450. This will be the most expensive plan that we have right now that we're offering in terms of what Tulsa has. And Conrad Farms, again, a neighborhood we've been in, done very, very well in. Again, this is a picture, I believe, of Conrad Farms in terms of the new section. This is another example of what we do, and I did this before in Oklahoma City. And this is where we do the return on investment analysis. We want to see if your money is working for you. As you can see, again, 13.49% is the annual rate of return on this house, 18.61. If you do a 1031 tax deferred exchange, this is, again, over a 7-year period. And again, this is everything that you're putting in there. Nothing is missing, including the fact that you're going to be paying selling cost when you go ahead and do it. And so now the 2 things I think that to say that really distinguish Oklahoma City and Tulsa is the fact that, you know, we still have affordability. And number 2, unlike the meetings that we've had previously this year, we all of a sudden have a lot of inventory for you. So there's a lot of choice that we can have here. We'll be happy, both Dave and I will be happy to go over these choices that we have with you, talk to you in detail about it. And in terms of Dave, Dave's more of a person that wants to talk to you on the phone versus a Zoom meeting. We're all a little bit different, I guess. And that is, you can email him at davidjmumper@outlook.com, or you can see the 2 phone numbers where you can go ahead and get a contact with Dave. Now, since he's not back yet, if you want the full inventory list, then go ahead and have hold of Angela at vreteam.com. Angela, Angela at vreteam.com. We'll be happy to go ahead and send that inventory, and you can have that before you talk to Dave. And I think, you know, from that point of view, that's I'm going to wrap this up. I know things are running, maybe, I don't know if they're running a little bit behind or not, Addie. I haven't done the Tulsa presentation before, but in the meantime, we'll be happy if you email us to send whatever you need or answer any questions. And again, this PowerPoint is with Addie at this point. He does have this presentation to send to you. And as Looney Tunes said, that's all, folks. Hello.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. So now we're going to have one of our experts. People have always been wondering and asking and needing more details and data about what an umbrella policy is. And for that, we invited Joyce Feldman. Hi, Joyce. It's nice to see you again.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. Thanks.
Good.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so welcome and thank you for tuning in on how insurance can assist you with protecting your assets. I'm Joyce Feldman. I have been in the insurance business since 2003. So almost going on 20 years here that I've been doing this as an independent agent. And a lot of people do look at insurance as the first line of defense. As your assets increase and time moves on, you sometimes need to go to other means, but this is the first way to start. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about the mistakes that people make. A lot of times, people never think that anything is going to happen to them. They don't really understand the dollar amounts that are at risk for them. They are more concerned about the cost versus the coverage. They don't understand that coverage gaps may exist, or what potential suits might be out there. I also find that people often underestimate their net worth and what they really have. And some of the things you really need to think about, it's not just how many homes you own or your autos, but you also have to look at other investments you might have. You also need to think about your future income, or if you have another business, even though it might be in a LLC, but do you own stock, that kind of thing. You need to look at all of that. And you need to really look at what your net worth is. And because if you don't, and you have a suit, your business, your investment business could be severely impacted. And people don't also think about, if I have a loss, what is that going to do to my lifestyle? How will that change? So one of the first things that happens when an accident or some problem occurs is that somebody may hire or look into hiring a personal injury attorney. And personal injury attorneys make their money off of injury claims against insurance companies. So they're going to automatically assume that if you are a wealthy person and you're well off, that you probably have insurance to cover. And because that's the easiest place for them to get paid is through an insurance company. And if you look at any personal injury attorney's website, you will see all the different claims that they've won, and they brag about it. They'll say, I won $2 million here, $3 million here, and I'm going to actually show that to you here in a little bit. And they do keep a percentage of that. So they are very motivated to get top dollar for you. Their websites will detail the most recent successes, and they do run asset searches on individuals to identify high net worth defendants. So here's some actual settlements, and I'm going to kind of just let these sink in a little bit because I've been using these for a while, but I mean, there's just constantly new things coming up. But as you can see, the first one, this involved a 16-year-old, and it was a $12 million settlement. So for those of you who have teenage children that drive your vehicles, they're a risk for you. You never know when something's going to happen. You could have a party at your home, and if you have a swimming pool in your backyard and one of the other children are injured and they become paralyzed or something tragic happens, you could be sued for that. And they're going to look at everything you own if that happens. So again, the next one is an auto accident with a 7-year-old girl. 902. We've had animal accidents where, a dog bites or a horse. This is a horse, $1.7 million. We have premises liability. I tried to pick different ones for you. A girl was partially paralyzed when she tripped and fell. Again, a swimming pool accident. And then we have landlord negligence. That happens too. That was a $3.3 million settlement. So there's always things that can happen that you really need to think about. Even if you have a vacation home or maybe you only rent out short-term rentals, those are all things that you need to think about. Actually, short-term rentals tend to be even more risky than the long-term rentals, at least from an insurance perspective. So they look at all these different things, and believe me, you can have a lot of risk. So it's important to protect that risk. So what do you need to add up to find out what you really have? So you want to look at your primary home. You want to look at all your rental properties. And yes, you probably have loans on those, but you're still going to have some equity in there, and you want to count that equity. Any savings, stocks, bonds, etc. Current income. Future income potential. That's the big deal because they can sue you for future income. So if you're in your 40s and you've got a good 20 years left of work in you, they could look at that next 20 years and say, they can take a significant portion of that. It's not really a limit anymore. They can look at it and take that income. and you would have to pay them every month, or they would just garnish your wages. You have to look at your retirement accounts. Even though they're somewhat protected, they can still look at it. It's the same thing if you own a corporation. I mean, they can still look at your stock, the stock that you own in that corporation. So you really need to look at all of your assets and consider all of that when deciding what kind of coverage you really need to have. So I did have to, umbrellas run from 1 million to 10 million on the personal line side. You can get commercial umbrellas as well, but it becomes complicated with the rental market. Typically, single family home rentals are considered personal lines with regard to insurance. So you would need to really have a personal umbrella to cover those. Now, if you have an apartment building with more than 4 units, so 5 units and above, that is in fact commercial. That would be a separate umbrella because commercial risks and personal line risks are considered separate from an insurance perspective. So what is recommended for an investor? Well, you have to have a minimum of $250, $500, $100 for bodily injury and property damage. You have to have I do recommend that you always have uninsured motorists for the same amount that you have for bodily injury, because if you are injured in an accident and that other person does not have insurance, you need to think about how you're going to continue to pay your bills, and you want to make sure you have coverage for that. I usually recommend medical 5,000. That's an optional coverage. Everybody's different on that. Your home liability, in order to qualify for an umbrella, has to be 300,000 plus. But I will tell you that umbrella companies are getting very, very stringent now. And as a matter of fact, prices have gone up quite a bit in some of these, especially when you have multiple rental properties. If you have more than 20, 25 rental properties, you're going to have to go with what's called a big umbrella. And when you have to go with a big umbrella, you actually have to have higher underlying limits. A big umbrella will go to 10 million, but you will have to have all of your properties insured for $1 million on the underlying policy. So umbrella doesn't cover property. This is strictly to protect your liability. So, and for each unit that you rent out, you're going to pay an extra premium. So the base price of the umbrella may be $300 for the first million, and then maybe you're going to pay another $25 to $35 per rental unit in addition. So I've sold umbrellas that are $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000 a year because of the number of properties and because of the high limits that they need. So, you know, it's a range, but the starting is somewhere between $300 and $500 if you just have a couple of rentals, 2 cars, and 1 main house. So what is an umbrella policy? So again, I want to reiterate this because people get confused with umbrellas. An umbrella policy is a separate liability policy. It's for liability only. It does not cover you if your house has a fire or for any property damage, tree falling, anything like that. Or if your tenant does damage to the property, that is not covered by an umbrella. An umbrella is strictly liability only should you get sued. And how it works is, let's say you're in an automobile accident and you injure 3 people in the other car, and 2 of them are in intensive care, and perhaps you're injured too, but it was your fault. It was deemed to be your fault, and they get an attorney. Your underlying coverage is going to cover you $250 per person, $250,000 per person, $500,000 per accident. Well, that's going to add up really quick if somebody's in the hospital. So that umbrella then kicks in after that fact. So if you have $1 million, you now have coverage for $1,250,000 per person or $1,500,000 per accident. So again, and if you have a higher umbrella, let's say you have a $5 million umbrella, again, it would be $5 million plus the 250,000 per person or the 500,000 per accident. So that's how umbrella works. It also follows form with the underlying policy. So for instance, you must have personal injury coverage on all your underlying policies as well, because some will cover you for premises liability, but they won't cover you for personal injury. So make sure that the agent checks that box, because for many states, there's a separate box. Yes, include personal injury. Some policies automatically include it. Others policies do not. So we want to make sure personal injury is actually included in there because it follows form. If you don't have personal injury and somebody sues you for a personal injury claim, you're not going to have coverage, because it follows form with the underlying. If it's not covered under the underlying, it's probably not going to be covered under the umbrella. So there are some rare circumstances that I've never actually had a claim for. So, but it's extremely rare. 99% of the time, it's going to be that it needs to follow form with the line policy. So I did talk a little bit about how it works and what it covers. And it's per occurrence, not aggregate. So you could have 2 or 3 claims a year and be covered on the full amount. Annual, again, we went over the annual costs, and the limits go up to $10 million. So who needs an umbrella? Well, you need an umbrella if you are a secondary or seasonal homeowner. Vacant properties can bring some high risk to you, so it's important if you have any vacant properties or even lots to have those covered. If you have a high net worth, you absolutely should have an umbrella. Families with youthful drivers should consider umbrellas, although I will tell you that in today's market, having a youthful driver will add significant premium to the umbrella. And also, not all carriers will cover youthful drivers on an umbrella anymore. They used to be pretty easy to do, but it's not so much anymore. If you're a toy owner, if you own boats, motorcycles, motorhomes, ATVs, etc., you would want to have that covered as well. If you own any investment rentals, again, that's where it's really important to have it, because you never know, something could go wrong at the home. You could be responsible for that. I think also if you have property managers, I think it's always a good idea to list them as an additional insured on your investment property. As the property manager, make sure they're listed, because you want that to follow form again with the umbrella. So you want to make sure that you list that property manager, because if they did something that created a problem for you as the owner, you want to make sure that you have that coverage. Also, there's crazy things like somebody trips and falls on the sidewalk. And if the sidewalk is on your property, you could be responsible for that. A tree falls and it falls into the neighbor's yard. Again, you could be responsible for that. So you want to make sure that you have that coverage, because even though your property manager has insurance, you also want to make sure as the owner that you're protected, because they can sue both of you. I'm going to give you an example of a case that I had where somebody bought a new home. It was brand new. They closed escrow, I'm going to just say on a Tuesday, for example. And on Wednesday, the contractor sent the roofer out there because there was something that needed to be fixed on the roof, and they hadn't completed it before the close of escrow. So they sent the roofer out there, and it was one of the employees, and that employee fell and broke their back and weren't able to work for months and months and months. And that employee obviously got an attorney. Not only was he covered for workers' comp, because the roofer did have insurance and he had workers' comp. However, they sued the developer and they sued the homeowner. And my insured umbrella paid out $600,000 on that particular claim. He hadn't even taken possession of it yet. It had been closed for one day. So it just goes to show that anything can happen at any time. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you have the correct liability coverage. And when you get a new home, don't wait 2 or 3 months to add it to your umbrella. Make sure you call your agent and say, oh, by the way, I just closed escrow on this house. Here's my insurance. Can you please add it to my umbrella as of this date? Because again, you want to make sure that that's covered. Some of the companies will give you a little leeway, you know, when you're talking 1 day, but you definitely want to do that. Don't wait until renewal to add it. I do get that a lot where clients will wait until their renewal date to actually add properties that they bought and sold. And I don't recommend that. I recommend that you contact the agent right away. Now, if you have a swimming pool, hot tub, swing set, trampoline, or dogs, you know, you have risk there. So you definitely, again, you need an umbrella. Okay, so let me talk a little bit more since I have time. I didn't know how long this would actually take. So I'm going to talk a little bit about umbrellas now. Because the market has gotten so stringent here in California, I have had difficulty in getting umbrellas for people who have youthful drivers. I have also had difficulty when somebody reaches the age of 70 or 75. Every umbrella is different. Some companies will add an LLC as an additional insured. Other companies will not add an LLC as an additional insured. So again, you really need to talk to your agent. I've had to go to surplus lines carriers for some umbrellas where they have multiple properties that are beyond the limits. A lot of companies will limit the number of rental properties to 5 or 6. Some will go to 10. I have a couple that will go to 20 or 25, but then once you get beyond that, it becomes extremely difficult. That's when you have to start looking at other options for coverage or protection. And that's where maybe you talk to an attorney and CPA and that kind of thing. But from an insurance perspective, you always want to make sure that if you have the lower limits, that you want to find that umbrella. But there will become a time where an umbrella may become cost prohibitive, or you can't simply get it. Let me talk a little bit about surplus lines because I do get questions about that too. So what a surplus lines carrier means is they're a highly rated and financially sound company, but they're not admitted in the state of California. And what that means is that they can do business in the state of California, but they're not monitored by the Department of Insurance here in the state of California. So what that means is that if you have a claim and you're not happy and you want to file a complaint, you would normally go to the Department of Insurance to file that complaint. And they will not do anything because they're not listed under the state. They're not admitted. So that's what a non-admitted carrier means. But there are times when we have no choice in the matter. Now, I see that a couple people have raised their hands. I don't know if they're in chat here. I'm just looking to see if I can. I'm going to go down because sorry. I'm going to go to the next. If you would like to take my name and number, and then I will answer questions if I can figure out how to. I think I'm going to have to stop sharing to be able to do that. Oh, there we go. Is it an additional cost to add property managers? Usually not. Usually, they will do that with most carriers. Now, I can't answer that question with regard to different states because I'm licensed here in the state of California. Most of the carriers I work with here do not charge extra for that. And yes, I do umbrella. And do we add property managers or the property management company they work for? You want to do the company because it could be anybody within that company that could maybe answer a question wrong. And then the other question is, does creating an LLC under which to purchase investment properties protect you against personal liability? That is a question that you need to ask an attorney. It depends on how you set it up. And it also, you have to keep everything separate. There cannot be any intermingling. The problem is a lot of times you can't get insurance on the property itself under the name of the LLC, and your name is on there. So, but that is something that you have to talk to an attorney about. And often when people go beyond the level that I can help them with an umbrella, that's when they really should be meeting with an attorney and setting up LLCs. And there was a couple of raised hands, but I'm not sure how.
You know what? Actually, Joyce, I've gone through. If you open the Q&A window that's there, do you see that at the bottom of your
I
screen?
do. Okay.
If you click
All right.
Q&A, there's a few that are there.
Okay, I see.
Those.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So, Mike, you asked a question that was for Joe. Okay. If you're a homeowner with an elderly driver, I guess I'm not sure about that question.
I think they were referring to, you were talking about young drivers and the cost of plans.
Right,
And I think they're
right.
talking
And
about elderly
yes.
drivers there.
And elderly drivers are a problem too. I had a customer that I had a big umbrella for a long, long time. He turned 80 this year. They will not renew his policy. They just, and I have gone everywhere. So things have happened. So yes, elderly drivers, they look at that as well. And then, does umbrella insurance cover across states or just within the state? So here's how umbrella works. You have to buy your personal umbrella policy in the state that you live. So where your autos and your primary home is, but they will add all the other properties that you have across the country, up to a certain limit, of course, but they will add those in as rental properties. You can have them. So yes, you would only need the one umbrella. Could you, okay, that's another question for previous. I think that's it. Did I miss any questions?
I believe that's all of the questions that I see here for you, I believe.
Okay, all right. And with that, is there anything else that I know we have just a couple more minutes here. If not, I'm not sure if the next person is ready.
Thank you very much for this presentation. And once again, to everyone, if you want to be connected with the speaker, just send us an email, info@icgre.com. I will connect you. Most of the PowerPoints will be available. Some speakers sometimes don't share them, but most of them do. Just send us an email, info@icgre.com. Joyce, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Jerry, can I ask you when the next event will be?
It is December the 3rd, and it is live on the website right now.
Okay, so our next event is on Saturday, December 3rd. We're going to have 3 great experts. Obviously, there will be some changes in the markets, changes in the properties. You can already register for it on our website, ICGRE, under events. So it's already up there, and you can register for free. I'm going to now bring up Joshua Cooper, CPA. Of course, it's always quite interesting to talk about taxes. Some new packages are coming up with the current, administration and Senate and House. And Josh, very nice to see you. I will give you a little extra time because Joyce finished a little bit early. If you would like, you can speak for about 40 minutes if you want, if you need it. And by the way, it hasn't escaped me, Joshua, that you are speaking to us here on September 10th, when on September the 15th is a major deadline for tax returns. So I appreciate that even more. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's great to be here again and be able to educate and share some knowledge with everybody here. There's a lot happening in the tax world all over the place, not just in the real estate world. So there's some of the stuff I'll talk about today will specifically address real estate taxes, and some of it will kind of share with any business that is being run, or just any personal taxes in general. But we'll start with some of the new stuff that's kind of been highlighted over the last few months in the tax world, and some stuff that's come up for me when I start to strategize about how this can affect people who are getting new rental properties specifically. And one of the biggest topics that the IRS has been kind of really clamping down on is something called, it's like the date placed in service. And so what this means is the date that your rental property is first eligible to be rented. And this is a significant date in your world. It's not when you purchase it, because when you purchase a property, you might have to do some renovations on it and it's not rentable. And why that makes a difference is because of how you expense things. So before your official date of in service, any expense you have is a capital expense, which means it has to be depreciated over 27.5 years, let's say, if it's a residential property. So that's a long time to depreciate an expense. As soon as that you cross the threshold to it's been placed in service, then you can take things like repairs and things, other little things, and expense them full in the current year. And so that becomes a big deal. So you're going to, what the IRS has been presenting, what's happened in a lot of cases, is that they default to when did you first advertise that your property was available to be rented. Even if you didn't rent it until a month or two later, the fact that you were advertising that it was available to be rented can start that period earlier. So then maybe some of the repairs and things like that, and the maintenance that you're doing on your property, you can expense in the current year instead of having to be depreciated over a longer period of time. So there's definitely some keys there. And one of the biggest strategies that popped up in my head is just as soon as possible, advertise that it's available, even if you need to delay when you actually sign someone to come in. As long as you're advertising it, pretty much that is really what they're going on. And so the other big component in the tax world that has come up is regarding depreciation. So what I was just talking about is a little bit about taking the difference between depreciating something and expensing it full in the current year. That's just an overwhelming or kind of overlying concept when it comes to rental properties. What can be depreciated and what can you write off in full in the current year? For most of us, we would want to write as much off in the current year as possible. That's usually the goal. And so, but something to worth note, and if I back up a little bit, when it comes to rental properties, they play by a different set of rules than a normal business would. So for example, if you had a business that was a CPA business, for example, or any service-based business, if you showed a loss in that business, that loss can help offset other income that you have. Like say you have a W-2 job from somewhere and you have a business washing cars on the side, but you show a big loss on that washing car business because you bought all this stuff in the first year, and you show that loss on that kind of business can offset the W-2 income and boost your refunds. Those are great. Real estate plays by a whole different set of rules. You can have a loss on real estate, but that loss most of the time just carries forward. And so it's a big difference. So when we're talking about expensing something full in the current year, that makes sense because you want to offset your rental income. But at some point, you're showing a loss on your rental property, and then that loss is just simply carrying forward. So it's something sometimes people are spending a lot of time trying to make sure that it's expensed in the current year, when all it's really doing is changing how much is carrying forward for later. And if you ever had a profit, or if you ever sell that property, you get to expense it in either scenario in full. The only exception to this rule, which I've spoken before about, and I always, and because I love it, it's one of the best things in the tax code, is this real estate professional title. That is the only caveat. If you meet these certain criteria, then the loss from your rental property can be used to reduce things like other income, interest, dividends, capital gains, or even other W-2 income. But there are a lot of rules to be considered a real estate professional. Most of the time, you cannot have any other occupation during that time that you're trying to do that. So even if you have a W-2 job at any level, usually I wouldn't take a real estate professional title status and to claim all these expenses if you had any W-2. I don't care where it's from, because already it's going to raise some flags with the IRS. So you have to meet a certain amount of hours a year, like 750 hours a year done in real estate, and it has to be like what you primarily do. So it has to be more than anything else that you do in your world. And it gets audited a lot. So that's why if you have a W-2 at the same time, I usually don't recommend it. The only times where it's really interesting is if you have a spouse who doesn't have a W-2, and we can say that they're the ones, the real estate professionals, because on a married joint return, everything kind of flows together. So even though you could have one spouse, let's say you had one spouse who had a great W-2 job and they were making lots of money for that, then the other spouse isn't working. You know, they're either retired or they took off to raise the kids or whatever they're doing. But you also have a bunch of rental properties. You could basically design it so all of those rental properties are technically in the name of the spouse who's not working, but that spouse is the one who does everything for those properties. Therefore, they could be a real estate professional, generate a big loss, and it could flow through and offset the other W-2 income. Anyway, lots of details there, but that's the main concept of like what happens with a loss on a real estate property and how it can be utilized, and what happens if you're not a real estate professional. And so one of the things that happens if you're not a real estate professional, almost for most people, it carries forward the losses. In some exceptions, if your income is below $150,000 a year combined, even if you're married, then you can claim $25,000 of that loss a year, which is still great. So if you can, move things around and time income in different ways, there may be a year where your income drops below certain thresholds and all of a sudden you get to claim a $25,000 loss, or something between 0 and 25,000, depending on how close you are to those limits. So it's good to understand how losses work on rental properties. And the reason I say that is because most rental properties show a tax loss. That doesn't mean you're running a cash loss. I mean, the amount of money you're bringing in from rent could be in excess of your expenses. They could pay for the mortgage and the interest, and you have a few $100s a month extra that you're saving. That is a cash profit. But for tax purposes, you also get to claim a depreciation expense on the entire building that you purchased, on the entire property. And so that depreciation expense also reduces and goes against any rental income. So generally you're showing a loss. Now, these days, a lot of people are renting properties through Airbnb, and they can get a lot more money from rental income because of that. And sometimes even with depreciation expense, you're still showing a profit because you're actually making a lot more money than you would if you just signed an annual rent with things. So most of the time people are showing a loss because of depreciation expense. But again, if your rent is high enough, you might not be, and you may be showing a profit, which would be amazing. So then in those kind of situations is where you kind of want to strategize how you're going to expense things in full and different ways of depreciation. One of the big changes that's coming up and that kind of changes at the end of this year is bonus depreciation. So bonus depreciation is a really great thing. So normally when you depreciate something, it's given a useful life. Like I said earlier, it could be 27.5 years. Sometimes it could be 5 years or 7 years. For something like a computer, it's 5 years. Other equipment and furniture, it could be 7 years. And you're supposed to take 1/7 of that expense every year. That's the depreciation concept. Bonus depreciation allows you to claim all of it in the current year. But the useful life has to be under 20 years. So you can't do it for like a rental property itself. But if you were going to put things in the rental property, like a washing machine or a refrigerator, an oven, or, different things like that, then you could claim that through depreciation, but it doesn't have to be spread out over multiple years. Bonus depreciation is currently at 100%, and you can write it all off in the current year. I'm stressing that 100% mark because that is more than likely going to be ending at the end of this year. That 100%. It has not always been 100%. For years, it was 50%. And then at some point, it was 10%. It was just ways that you can get in there. So it's been 100% for a few years now. We're almost going on the third year that's been at 100%, which has been amazing. And so after this year, it goes down to 80%. And then the year after, it goes down to 60, and it keeps going. And it'll bottom out around 20% somewhere here in the next 4 or 5 years. So that being said, bonus depreciation is an interesting thing to think about, because if you are in a situation where you have profits, or you're in a situation where you could be a real estate professional and you want to maximize your expenses, then things like bonus depreciation come in super handy, because you want to write everything off as much as possible. And so another question I often get is, what's the difference between bonus depreciation and Section 179 expense? This is another concept in the tax world. They're both accelerated depreciation concepts. So for example, even the 100% bonus depreciation that I was just talking about, that means if you bought a washing machine and it cost, I don't know, just say you bought a refrigerator and it cost $1,000, instead of spreading it out over a few years, you accelerate that depreciation to claim it all in the current year. Buy it tomorrow, you get a $1,000 write-off here in 2022. Section 179 is a different kind of accelerated depreciation. Same kind of concept though. You get to accelerate it and claim it all in the current year. And there are pros and cons to doing both of those. The biggest difference that I see is that Section 179 expense, you can't claim if you already are showing a loss. It can't make your loss bigger. So you're limited in that way. Bonus depreciation, you can claim, and it can make your loss a lot bigger. So that's kind of like the main concept to understand. And there's a lot more details involved in that, but I just kind of wanted to bring that up, because what I'm still seeing a lot of these days are the cost segregation studies. And so basically what that is when you purchase a rental property, the whole building is depreciated over 27.5 years. However, if you do a cost segregation, which includes hiring a company to basically do it for you, there are some online do-it-yourself kind of cost segregation studies, but the IRS would not honor those, or has not honored those upon audit. They have to be by a licensed, someone who has gone through the training to do what they're about to do. They issue you a report. Sometimes it can cost a few grand, somewhere between $3,000 and $7,000 to do one of these reports. They're expensive, but the benefit could be huge. So you could take that property that's normally 27.5 years, and basically it'll break it down into categories. Like this part is 5 years, the ducking, is 5 years, or some equipment is 7 years, and this is 15 years, and it'll break it out. Still, the bulk of it will be 27.5 years. But let's say you buy a property for a few $100,000, they may be able to take 100,000 of that and segregate it into these different segments. And why that's such a big deal is because as soon as you move it from 27.5 years to one of these smaller segments, 5 years, 7 year, or 15 years, all of a sudden it's eligible for bonus depreciation, and you can claim it all in the current year. So you may spend $3,000 to $5,000 on a cost segregation study in exchange for $100,000 of expense in that year that you get to write off and accelerate, which could be gigantic and a super tax saving strategy is to do that. And So I'm noticing a lot of still cost segregation studies and a big push for them to happen basically so they can be claimed on the 2022 tax return. Now, what's interesting about cost segregation studies is that they can actually happen, the study can happen after the tax year ends. In fact, I was just waiting on some cost segregation studies a couple of weeks ago for someone's 2021 tax return. So as long as they had filed an extension, which we did because we knew we were waiting for this for this cost segregation study, we knew we were waiting for it. So we filed an extension and they finished the cost segregation study 2 weeks ago. Then we could add it back into their 2021 tax return. It's really cool. You can do it after the fact. Sometimes I'm looking at someone's tax return and I'm like, you should do a cost segregation study on it. See how fast you can get them on board, because sometimes it could take a month or month and a half to do it all. It's not instantaneous process. So you want some time for that, but it's so cost segregation studies are big for 2022 because of this bonus depreciation still in effect. And if we can move assets from the big categories into the smaller categories, then we might be able to get a huge expense write-off from that. So that's definitely something to note about. All right, last major topic, which is, and then I can dive into some more details, is inherited property. This is still one of the best things going on in the tax world as well, which is if you inherit a property, you get it at the fair market value on the date that you inherit it. This concept is called like a step up in basis. So for example, if your mother passes away and you inherit her house, you get it at the value, not what she paid for it. She may have bought that house in 1960 for 100,000 and it's worth $1 million today. So she's got a gigantic gain in there. And if she sold it before she passed away, she'd have to pay a lot of tax on that gain. So a lot of times we're strategizing for elderly people to hold on to those assets, find some other way to take a reverse mortgage out or take a loan out to float the ship, because if you can pass that on to your beneficiaries through inheritance, through some like a living trust kind of thing, then they're going to get it at a fully stepped up basis. They could sell it the next day and pay no gain or no tax at all. So it's still huge. This was on the chopping block to be removed, but there was so much lobbying against it. I hope it never gets removed because it's a gigantic aspect, and there's so much estate planning and that we do around this whole step up in basis concept. And it's a big one. And I see it most of the time for rental properties. And so, or even primary residence, just property in general, because that's the thing that usually are held for the long term, and they are bequeathed and given to beneficiaries. Stocks are the same, just as a side note, like if your mother passes away and she has her primary residence and also stocks that she's been holding for a long time, those stocks also get a step up in basis. So there's a lot of strategy that you can kind of implement as people start to move into those later years, and they're starting to think about their estate planning and kind of divvying up assets or setting up trusts and things like that, how to spend things. Because a lot of times when people get into those later years, they may need a lot more cash to pay for medical expenses or do things like that. And if you were one of the beneficiaries of that, you may be willing to help out or lend some money so that they can do that and not sell the house, or maybe not even sell stock to do that, because they would be paying gain on that. So there's a lot of strategy there, and it's still fully alive and functioning. So I think that is it's still something that is very highly still on the table and can still be utilized by people in their planning. All right, so that was a lot of information. That was kind of like, to me, what the hot topics of this year have been around. It's just more some of the things that I've seen kind of come across my world, and things that are really really good things to know about. and I blasted through them. So I apologize for that about how fast I just went through them. But there's a lot there. And maybe if I just touched on something and there's a lot of information out that you can research too. If I mentioned real estate professional and you're like, he went through that super quick. I mentioned 750 hours. What can I do? You know, like there's a lot of information out there to start your search for, you know, like one thing you can do. And one thing that I actually inspire and empower the people I work with to do, and all of you to do, which is have confidence in your ability to dive into this world. A lot of people are overwhelmed when it comes to taxes. And I get it. There's way too much information to know it all, but that doesn't mean you can't learn about it. And I think that the more you learn about it, the more you can have a dialogue about it, and the more you can have a dialogue with your tax preparers about it. So it's not just this kind of thing that you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to understand all of the tax world. And that's true. But you can still learn and ask questions. And sometimes people ask me questions. I'm like, where did you get that information? No, that's completely wrong. And they're like, oh, I found it online. I was like, yeah. Okay. Well, so you can't believe it all, but at least you starting to train your brain to think in certain ways, because there are still a lot of strategies that can be done all over your tax returns on an annual basis. One thing, for example, is that, you know, one of the things that I see the most common kickback from the IRS has to do with 1099s that people get from their tenants. So tenants issue them a 1099 for rental income that they paid you. You know, you get a 1099 in the mail. But sometimes it's from a property management company, and they're handling 4 of your properties. So it's hard for the IRS computer system to understand what's going on your tax return. So these days, I joke around and say that I'm a tax return designer. Fancy, but it's like, because I'm designing tax returns to float through a computer system with the IRS. We got to know the rules. Obviously, I'm not trying to do anything against the rules, but even just putting things on a tax return could get flagged by the IRS, and it's not like you would get in trouble. They're just going to send you letters, and you have to defend your position. You're like, oh, that 1099 was actually for multiple properties. So you have the answer. But my goal is to not even get asked the question in the first place. So there's a way you have to design tax returns to float through a system. And when you get something like a 1099 from a property management company that is for 3, 4 properties, sometimes there's different strategies of how to present that on a tax return. And one that I've been doing over the course of the years, which is just working great with an IRS computer system, is adding a whole nother real estate property on your tax return that's called like consolidated rental expenses. And I started doing it there for expenses that weren't exactly attributable to any one property, you know, like even paying your CPA, for example, or maybe different umbrella insurances, or different legal fees, or continuing education, or, you know, home office expenses, things that like you could take and spread out by a little bit on each one, but it was easier to place just in one column. But now I've been utilizing that same concept to have a 1099 and show it as income on this, like, let's say that it covers for like 3 or 4 properties, show it as total income on this consolidated rental property, and then back it out as a big expense saying allocated to other rental properties, and you subtract it back out. So the net is 0. So when it's going through an IRS computer system, the IRS says 1099, does it show up on the return? It does. Move along. It's kind of like a Jedi mind trick, you know, so it's like Jedi mind trick in the tax world, you know, so, but it's basically to a computer. So it's, you know, there's a lot of things like that that are kind of still alive and available to work with on a tax return. So you can kind of get creative with how you even present the numbers. And so I'm big into understanding what to label things as, because, you know, a lot of times there's a there's a category even in rental properties called other expenses. And other expenses, you're supposed to put things that don't fit in any one of the other categories. And now we're in kind of more fragile world because you can write in anything you want there, but that doesn't mean you should. So I review tax returns for people that I didn't prepare, and I'm like, oh my God, you got way too descriptive on your other column because it'll let you write anything in there. You don't need to write a novel about your description. You almost want to be less descriptive, just be as vague as humanly possible, try to lump categories together, because just putting the wrong language into one of those categories could just send it down a different trajectory inside of the belly of the IRS computer system, which is something we want to avoid. So it's so there's just some work that can be done there, and this is common not just in the real estate world, but in any business, sole proprietorship, S corporation that you could be running. Sometimes bookkeepers will put things in a lot of different categories, but as a tax preparer, we kind of sum things up and kind of clean it up so it looks easily digestible by the IRS computer system. It's the same numbers. It's not like that strategy is saving in taxes. It's just saving in chances of it getting reviewed. And so that's always in the backdrop of part of my world is, how to save in taxes, but also do it in a way where no one's going to ask any questions. And that's the delicate balance there. And so with that being said, I was more kind of just inspiring, kind of just trying to get people to kind of think of like how their tax return works. Look at it. I mean, tax returns are crazy lengthy these days. They're short novels if you really wanted to understand them. But like the first 20 pages of it, you should look at and kind of see how it flows. Tax return is kind of like the first 2 pages of a tax returns are almost like the summary. And every number on there is pulling from a different page on your tax return that flows back to it. So just understanding how that kind of flow works, it goes a long way with understanding in your ability to actually talk about your tax return, which I think is a super powerful tool to be able to, I call it talking tax, which is just kind of like engaging in a conversation about tax returns, which historically has been taboo or boring, but it doesn't have to be. It could just be casual you can talk about it with friends or professionals without revealing all of your tax return. Just like, hey, I was thinking about paying my child as an employee. Do you do that from your business? How do you do that? What do you, little things like that, where you start to kind of think about different elements that you can do inside of your businesses and inside of your rental properties, so that it's a team affair. We're all on the same team trying to present things on a tax return that help us pay less in taxes, help us not get questioned, help us do it cleanly. So like the more we talk about it, the more you're confident in taking an approach, and the less fear exists in what you're doing because you understand it. So a lot of times I'll explain stuff to clients and they don't even want to hear it, but I can tell that it makes them nervous because they don't understand it. So I'm like, let me just explain it for a few seconds here. And they're like, oh, I get it. I'm like, yeah, so there's nothing to worry about. So all that fear, you can just let it go. You're good. You're totally good. And so that's something that's important that I would love for everybody to walk away with.
Josh, there are some questions for you on your Zoom screen. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's
I see it. Yeah.
and also in the chat.
Okay, so one of the questions is solar panels, and this is still a gigantic, amazing thing in the tax world right now, which is, you're still able to write off solar panels. The easiest way to write off solar panels is actually still on your primary residence. That's kind of how it is designed in the credits. You can claim it on rental properties, but it's a little trickier to do, but it can still be done. You can claim bonus depreciation on that as well, but you always want to subtract out any amount that you had for credits that you can't like double dip there for both. Let's see if I can look at some of give me a second here to read these. Okay. Bonus depreciation on a vehicle. That's one of the questions here. So yeah, vehicles are one of those things that you should definitely claim as a deduction from your business. Now it's subject to a couple different rules. One is percentage of business use. So should never claim an automobile as 100% business use. That is just a sitting duck for an audit. But 85%, 75%, that's all legit. And there are situations where it is 100% if it's a cargo van or something like that, but not a normal vehicle that is, but if you're in the construction industry and stuff like that, you could probably claim more than normal in that. But so yes, and the way, but even once you purchase a vehicle and you figure out your percentage, you can claim a bonus depreciation on it or Section 179, but it's limited for normal automobiles. Like if you buy, you know, a Honda Accord or a Tesla, and the most you can claim in the current year is around 20,000, and then the rest you can claim over certain periods of time. But what's interesting about it is that it's on the total purchase price, not how much you paid. So if you pay attention, December is a gigantic month for auto sales, because if you buy a car on December 31st and you just put like $2,000 down, but you're buying a $60,000 car, you're writing off $60,000, not the $2,000. And so granted that $60,000 may be limited based on percentage or based on this $20,000, but just like the real estate professional rule, there are some loopholes in the thing. Like if the car weighs over 6,000 pounds, which is a pretty big automobile, but if it is, then you get to write it off in full in the current year. So there's some really great things with vehicles too. But yeah, definitely do that. And a lot of people ask me, does the vehicle have to be in the business's name or, you know, the LLC's name? And it doesn't have to be, but usually I like it to be. But no one's going to sell a car if you're trying to finance it at all to an LLC that has no credit. So usually you'll have to like co-sign it as the owner, and it's kind of under both your names. That's totally cool and totally proper to do. So there's nothing wrong with that. So a couple of questions on real estate professional title, and one is if your spouse worked part-time during the year but is not a W-2 anymore, they were just a W-2 at the beginning of the year, and the rental properties in a revocable trust or like a living trust, or can you still claim the spouse as a real estate professional? Yeah, and the fact that it's in a revocable trust or a living trust is irrelevant. That's still kind of, for tax purposes, is kind of disregarded. But again, this all comes down to if you're going to get questions. So technically, if that spouse meets the rules of 750 hours and they're doing a lot more in the real estate world, they would qualify for that. But the fact that they had a W-2 for the first part of the year, it makes it questionable for me. And it's just a higher probability that it would get questioned, because the IRS doesn't see that. The IRS only sees there's a W-2 for a spouse and taxpayer, and they're claiming real estate professional. You would have to explain it. And explaining it, like I said earlier, is not ideal. We try not to explain things to the IRS. Maybe waiting till the following year would be advisable. That kind of thing would be something to consider. If there was a gigantic taxable event in that year and you needed this deduction this year, maybe you could consider it. And that's something to consider for sure. So yeah, I mean, I think that's there's a bunch more questions here. So I would another question is, how would I recommend allocating between land and building and land? This is a great question. This is for a rental property. When you purchase a rental property, you get to claim a depreciation expense. The default is 27.5 years, but you can only depreciate building. You're not allowed to depreciate land. So you have, if you bought a house for 300,000, you can't depreciate 300,000. You have to take some amount of that and say, this is the amount that was allocated to land. And so sometimes you can look at the property tax statement, depending on what county is doing the breakdown, and they'll have a breakdown. Worst comes to worst, you could do a default 75% building, 25% land. And that way you're only depreciating 75% of the purchase cost as you're building, and the land of 25% is not getting depreciated, and it just kind of carries through. But that's definitely something I've seen in audits. The IRS has gone both ways as to what is average for that area. Sometimes they've looked at property tax statements themselves, but sometimes the property tax statements are just incorrect. They're either old, outdated, depending on how you got it. They're not doing an accurate split. 75%, 25% is usually adequate. That being said, if it's a condo or something like that that doesn't have a yard or land associated with it, you're looking at 100% depreciation on that. You don't have to break that out into land and building for condos in particular. All right. I think, I mean, this is my favorite part of the thing, but I'm not sure
There's
how
one here.
much
There's one here that may take you some time, so maybe you can just skim this. It's a foreign investor asking about the inheritance from property owners who are not in the US, not residents of the US. So
Yeah,
somebody bought a property, they're a foreigner now, they died. So I guess it is up to, what is the US looking at it like? Never mind, their own country.
Yeah. Okay. So if in the situation, if I understand the question correctly, you inherit property from someone who is not a US citizen, and you want to do something with this property, either continue to rent it out or sell it. US tax law still is in effect for those kind of properties. And so when you inherit property, you inherit property. So that is at the fair market value of the property when you inherit it. And so if you inherit a property in Egypt for $2 million, and there was big gain on that but they didn't sell it because they passed away with it, you inherited at that amount. And if you turn around and sell it the next day, there's no gain to you on that. Or if you turned around and rented it, that's your depreciation base moving forward. So still great. Inheriting property is sensational. And so
yeah, but in the US, let's say that somebody owns a lot of property and then they die, God forbid. Now, there are certain large minimums where there's not going to be an estate tax, whatever it is, 11 million or something, whatever, the numbers are now, you know them better than me. But do they treat somebody who is not a US resident the same way?
No. If someone's a non-US resident and they have, there was a few different scenarios you put out there. If you're a non-US resident and you have rental properties that are not in the United States, you don't have to worry about the US estate tax.
No. If you are not a US resident, but you own rental properties in the United States, now you die.
Okay. Yeah. So if you own property in the United States, then you have the property that you own in the United States are subject to US tax law. So if whether or not you would be, I believe you would be exempt from estate tax, but there may be income tax that you would have to pay. And so depending on what's happening with those properties and what happened if you just pass them on, if you didn't sell anything, if you have, the first thing to note is that if you are a non-US citizen, let's say you don't even live in the United States and you have rental properties in the United States, filing tax returns in the United States is something that is required because you're generating income. Even though you're showing a loss on these properties, then you're still have to file tax returns to show that you have no taxable income in the United States. So you're already filing tax returns in the United States on some sort of annual basis, and you may even have to file a state tax return, maybe. But usually we can get around that, but it's at least a federal tax return for sure. And so there's income tax, and then there's the estate tax that you're talking about, which you would not be subject to.
I think this is too big to try to tackle right now. So
It's a big it's a big concept.
If somebody wants to know more, I'll connect them to you. They can give you all their gory details, and then you can get into it. But this is not the forum for that.
Agreed. Yes, agreed.
Joshua, I want to thank you so much for taking time, especially when we are in the midst of a deadline that's pending in 5 days. So that's very nice of you. Always a joy to hear you speak. Thank you so much.
You got it. Always a pleasure for me too. We'll talk more soon.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to look at some of the questions. Some of them can be answered right here and now, some of them not. But let's take it from the very beginning. The first question of the day. A number of large industrial hedge funds buyers are pushing the pause button on single-family homes right now. Is this good news for us because there's less competition, or should we follow suit and press the pause button ourselves? Well, we have to distinguish in a major way between us and the hedge funds that are buying homes. The hedge funds, by and large, are buying these homes for cash. They raise money and then they buy cash. So the linchpin of why we do it is that we do it in the one country in the world where they give you the biggest financial gift in the world, the 30-year fixed rate loan. We are in a completely different category than the hedge funds. Therefore, even though I know that some hedge funds are continuing to buy and not stopping at all, if there is one or two of them that is slowing down, for us, it's a net gain. Because our bane, our problem has been lack of inventory. So if there's less people buying, less entities buying, it's good for us. The 30 years fixed is what we are interested in, and the rates are very low. Historically, as I said at the beginning of the day, it has always worked. It worked when the rates were 14, 12, 10. That's why I said, I don't care. Of course I care. But I said, in a way, I don't care if the rates are 7 or 10. Of course I care. I would rather have a rate of 1. The better the rate, the better I like it. But what I meant to say is it has worked very well with rates of 10, as long as you look at it as it should be looked at. A long-term investment. Yes, the current cash flow is of little interest to me. Because if I'm talking to you, Mr. Investor or Ms. Investor, right now you're probably working, W-2, your own business, whatever income from something, that's your cash flow right now. Don't care very much about how much the house gives you a cash flow when you put a minimum down payment and then you put a 30-year fixed rate loan on it. But when you wait 10, 12, 14 years, the loan looks so small because inflation keeps hammering it. Now you can do what so many people have done. Again, I already gave an example, the beginning of the day, the person who told me that after 13 years, all his mortgages obviously had 17 years left, and yet there were only 26%, on average of the home values. He sold 4, paid capital gains on these sales, paid off the other 15 little tiny loans. Now 15 free and clear home. Now major cash flow. Now retiring from Silicon Valley. So yes, a little patience is always called for, but for the person who is super impatient and feels, yes, even though I make hundreds of thousands of dollars in Silicon Valley, I must get another $100 a month from this house. It's absolutely important, to me, because I read Fat Ant, Thin Ant. It's very, very, okay, fine. So then for that person, don't do it, buy cash. But for the people who really get it. So let me give you an example. When Warren Buffett was in touch with me in 2012, He wanted to buy a significant number of homes for Berkshire Hathaway. He is a very smart person. You know, he has more than $100 billion, and Hathaway has tens of billions of dollars. Clearly, he could afford to buy the homes for cash. Not so. He's smart. So I'm talking to the person who talked to me. I can see justifying putting a down payment, and then I'm Warren Buffett certainly saw a way to justify. Smart person. He wanted to put 20% down, put 30-year fixed rate loan on all of them, and then just let them be, let inflation kill the loans, so that there's a cliche in real estate: what you owe today, you own tomorrow. That's the whole point. Buffett says this so clearly. I haven't retired because I'm trying to make everybody see it clearly, but a couple of the question here indicates the asker doesn't see it as clearly. Luckily, I believe I have a meeting with that person, so I can get a little deeper into it. But that's the point. 10% will still work. 12% will still work. 7% is better. 5 is even better. 1 is even better. Of course. Details, long-term investment that will change your future, thanks to the anomaly of the financial gift called 30 years fixed rate loan, especially in the face of inflation, which is now even higher, given only in one crazy country called the US. Anybody who completely gets it, completely runs out to buy as many homes as they can with 30-year fixed rate loan. Okay, anyway, let's see. I said the numbers don't work in Phoenix, Las Vegas. How do I know? I talked about it. So it's really just a general sense. If we buy a home, we heard Oklahoma City for 230, it rents for 1,600. That's one ratio. Buying in Phoenix, 500, rents for 2,400, a totally different ratio. You don't have to be a scientist about it. Can we assist getting loans for foreigners? Yes, there are lenders who lend to foreigners. Just send us an email, info@icgre.com. You have the option to buy any homes you want. Duplexes, used home, you can do whatever you want. I recommend buying brand new homes. Are there any markets in Europe? We talked about that. Construction to perm, Gene explained. Do we have a preferred lender? Again, each market, you need to talk to the local broker to see if the builders insist that the investors use a local lender because they want to be safe and sure that the deal will actually close. But if not, yes, of course, send us an email, info@icgre.com. We will connect you to a lender. What do I think of Salt Lake City, Prova? We used to buy there, and I mentioned it in the list of cities that do not work these days. Remember, Salt Lake City was one of them. I actually own property there, way too high, not interesting. Selling, excellent. Buying, not so good. Okay, let's see. What are your thoughts on townhomes or in desirable locations? And what are your thoughts of homeowners association? Well, actually, the question has the answer built in. Townhomes, you can call them condos. You are subject to a very restrictive or big homeowners association. They can raise the fees. They can have special assessments. During recessions, I've seen during the 2008 recession, you bought a townhome, you are a model citizen. You paid the homeowners association fees, you paid everything on time, but many other people couldn't and didn't. And all of a sudden, the homeowners association didn't have enough money. The complex started getting run down and you suffered, and that is not good. I absolutely prefer single family homes to condos and townhomes. Let's see. Evictions. Let's see. Yes, somebody bought in Memphis. I don't understand why, but I'm not surprised that they had a lot of evictions. I'm talking about buying nice new homes in good areas. So most of the states that we're talking about, the states that you saw today, have a good policy towards evictions. Also, when you buy brand new homes in good areas in suburbs, evictions are very, very few and far between. But in all of these states, eviction process is fast and efficient, relatively, usually can be measured in weeks, sometimes a couple of months. Of course, in California and New York State, it could be years. So those are very, not landlord-friendly states. Somebody's riffing about their experience with the net operating income. Yeah, it's about 2/3 of the gross rent, exactly. And the sheets that the realtors prepare, 30 years ago, they used to include the guessing, vacancy and repairs. But many of my more experienced investors said, please don't give me your guessing for vacancies and repairs. So they stopped. So on their sheet, they just put the property tax, insurance, homeowners association, management fees, rent coming in, and you have to add your own guess for repairs and vacancy. For the kind of homes that we are looking at, I think a couple of $100 a month is what I use as a rule of thumb. Very rough for repairs and vacancy. Repairs on brand new homes for quite a few years are not very meaningful. Vacancies in the current markets are very low. So $200 a month, some people even use $150. You use your own formula. That's the beauty of it. That's why they don't put it on the sheets. Let's see. Contact information for the speakers. Anybody who wants to contact any of the speakers, please send us an email at info@icgre.com. We'll be happy to connect you. Question to Joe. So that's from before. A question to Joyce on insurance. Again, I can connect you to Joyce. You can ask her. Talked about a question to the CPA. Climate change and climate. So I live in the state of California. We are experiencing fires every year now for about 4 years. And a little bit stranger temperatures. In Florida, it's hard to say whether the frequency of hurricanes that are meaningful has gone up, but let's assume that it's gone up. So the building standards have tightened and insurance companies are more stringent and tight. That's in Florida. In the middle of the country, usually the risk is more the tornadoes. Just in general, to talk about general risks, the natural disasters come in 3 main flavors: the tornado, the hurricane, and the earthquake. So out of the 3, the tornado is the best, if you can call it that. That's the middle of the country. Some parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and that's the best one in a way because it's usually very narrow. It usually hits just one street or one small, area. Also, it's well insured. So if something happens, insurance will cover it. I said before, we bought about 2,000 homes in Oklahoma City. We have yet to have any home hit by a tornado, but if it was, the insurance is perfect. In other words, whatever deductible you have, of course, you'll pay, but they cover it. And in fact, insurance companies are making a statement that the tornado is not a big risk because the policies, the premiums on policies in Oklahoma are cheap. So the tornado is the simplest one, the easiest one, and the relatively safest one and best insured. Second one is the hurricane. Hurricane is usually around the coast, either in the south or in the east, of course. And hurricane can hit thousands of homes in one go, not a direct hit necessarily, but lots of water, wind, precipitation, maybe trees falling. So it is also well insured. In other words, you had a damage, it will be insured. But again, some of the insurance companies in Florida are starting to really tighten the screws. They will renew a policy if they do a roof inspection and things of that nature. But it's still well insured. I've experienced a couple of cases and insurance was good, and I know from my investors. The worst one is in California and some other places, the earthquake. So earthquake insurance is very, very poor. The deductibles are usually enormous and the damage could be very high. So if you wanted to be logical about it, get in your car, leave the Bay Area and don't look back. But many people live here, and in LA, But it is the earthquake is the worst one. Let me see. Somebody's asking me about Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge is generally not a bad market. They haven't had a lot of inventory recently. When something comes, then we will likely resurrect it. Any property manager other than Realty Medics? No, we use Realty Medics, and they're very receptive to us. We don't have an alternative manager in Florida now, but we could all look together and find. My views of Midwestern state, Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin, that person must have joined us a little bit late because I began the day today by sharing my criteria of where to buy. And the first criteria is Sunbelt states because the demographic wave is going there. So not interested in buying in these northern states that demographically are the opposite of growing. So no presence for us in those states. Any lenders these days for 10 plus loans? Yeah, so Fannie Mae only limits you to 10 loans, including the loan on your residence, that are under the Fannie Mae guidelines. If you're a married couple and you take the loan, you buy the property in both names. Fannie Mae enables you to take the loan in just one of your names. If you can qualify, each of you, then the limit goes to 20. But yes, there are certainly lenders for more than 10 homes. And if you want to be connected, just send us an email, info@icgre.com. The next event is on Saturday, December 3rd. We'll have great speakers, I already know, and lots of changes will be by then. You can register on our website. It's already there. Under the website is ICGRE and under events. I've been asked on my phone, somebody says, how do we find your podcast? So yeah, I do have a health and wellness podcast. It's been a passion of mine my whole life. I even have a PBS show about this. You can find it anywhere on YouTube, on Amazon Prime, on Apple Podcast, on Spotify. Just look for the Adi El Gorel Show. And as I said, my music, just look for, Adi El Gorel. Somebody also wanted to know if I could share my first show, the television show about real estate called Remote Control Retirement Retreat. Absolutely. Just send us an email and I'll send you back a link to the television show that was on PBS and played a lot of times throughout the country. Let's see. Thank you for holding the expo. Okay, great. Somebody says my credit has been damaged due to a divorce. I may even have a credit person talk in the next event, but send an email to us, info@icgre.com, and I'll connect you to a credit repair company. Let's see the chat. So yeah, the quick list again. The quick list is when there were plentiful properties, I used to get them almost every week, and I would share it with the people on the quick list first, quickly. But now you still get updates and properties from time to time. All you need to do is to send us an email, info@icgre.com, put quick list in the subject line. That's all. What is the interest rate for foreigners getting a 30-year fixed rate? I don't know. I really don't know. I would probably guess it's 7 something. There any market Europe? We talked about that. This is for Gene. Looking. Okay. Let's see. Any concerns? Oh yeah, we talked about that. Currently. Oh yeah, wait. We've been through all of these. Okay, let's see. Okay, here. I'm sorry. Questions. Yes. Suggestion how to sell a home in the San Francisco Bay Area? No, just use a local broker. We don't deal with the local market here, even though we live here. The email address it wasn't clear the way I said it. It is, I'm putting it, I think it's in the chat. Info, like information, info. Sorry about that. At icgre.com. I'll also say it. If you want anything from us, the presentations, the PowerPoints, to be connected, to talk with me directly, send us an email. I just put it in the chat. info@icgre.com. Let's see. Okay, so I have enough here in terms of questions. I don't have any more. A couple of you are going to be meeting with me one-on-one anyway, so we can go deeper. You may want to check out, those of you that don't have it, one of my books. Probably the last one I put on Amazon last year, Remote Control Retirement Riches. I think it'll be a good reference on all of this. And watching the TV show also really helps to see the point with the 30-year fixed rate loan. Again, send us an email. We will be happy to send you, all of this. Now, let's see if you guys have any more questions. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And somebody talks about a DSCR lender. Yeah, there are all kinds of, that's a commercial lender. So yeah, they exist. But remember, I prefer, even when you get loans that are not under the Fannie Mae umbrella, to still get a 30-year fixed rate loan. And some people always ask, what about 15-year loans? Well, the 30-year loan includes the 15-year loan inside. You can pay it off in 15 years. And the 15-year loan doesn't include the 30-year loan inside. You cannot pay it off in 30 years. It's always better to take the longer term, even if the rate is slightly higher, because it gives you a lot more flexibility. So I think the 30-year loan is a very good loan to get. Again, nothing here is cast in stone. Those are just my ways of thinking. I've seen the results. And once again, the big results from these investments come long-term. To the person who said, I don't understand putting a down payment, what, cash flow, that, I will say one thing. The measure of return on investment that I use and is meaningful to me is IRR, internal rate of return. And the way that I can employ it is I bought a house, I know my down payment, my closing cost, all of my expenses. I have every dollar. Then I held the house for so many years. I know what income came in, what expenses went out, everything, every dollar. Then I sold it. I know my closing cost, the commission I paid, everything. Now I have all the dollars and the timeline. Time to calculate IRR. Excel even has a function called XIRR. You feed it the timeline, the numbers. I have yet to ever make under 15% IRR on these properties when I only put a down payment and get a 30-year fixed rate loan. Because in my long-term hold, inflation kind of crushes the loan to being low, and the results are very, very nice. I mean, back in the day when we can put only 10% down, it was routine to make more than 21% or 22%. With 20%, I never made that less than 15% IRR. So if somebody has a little patience, I think this is one of the most conservative new homes in the suburbs, in the Sunbelt of a large metropolitan area, and powerful investments, not to mention all these tax benefits. This is really, sometimes when I talk about it, I feel like it's too good to be true. Somebody says, I think inflation is used in the IRR calculation. What do you use for that? I don't use anything. I just plug. I'm a simple person. I plug in the numbers and I see what comes out. Let me see. Let's see. Okay, trying to find it. Let's see if we have any. What are your thoughts on using ARMs or adjustable rate mortgages? So I spent considerable time, even today, explaining why I like the fixed rate loan, because it never changes with inflation. ARMs are exactly the opposite. They change with inflation. So why? Why go there? No, I prefer, I mean, if you feel like you're going to sell the property within 6 or 7 years and you get a 10-1 arm, I would say, yeah, maybe, but you never know the future. You never know if you're going to sell. Selling in 6 or 7 years is too short. To me, the horizon of keeping the property should be 10, 12, 14 years. And so to me, the arms are useless. I would never use an arm, never. I would only use a 30-year fixed. Again, when I say never, I'm sorry. If I know I'm buying a home, absolutely I'm selling it in 3 years. Yeah, I could use an arm. But I never know the future, and I would not buy a property to sell in 3 years. So my question about arm, my opinion of arms is pretty dim. Somebody, I think, asked about, you do a 1031 exchange. You defer the taxes. The taxes are still there. One day, when you're going to sell your replacement properties, the taxes are going to be paid because the deferment has been represented in the lowered basis. True, but there are a couple of ways to get around it. One of them uses a hack that I don't really recommend, but here is the hack. You did a 1031 exchange. You sold one property, you bought 5. Maybe you even did it again. You sold, you bought 5. You bought. Now you have all these properties. One hack is you never sell. You never sell. You never sell. You know, eventually the mortgages are either stupid or you pay them off, like in my examples, and they keep feeding you a cash flow with no loans, plus the net worth of the properties. And then one day you die. That's the hack. So the minute you die, all the taxes will not be paid anymore. So I'm not recommending it. I'm not recommending that you die, but you know, one day you will. So that's a good thing to have. Another thing is also about the step-up basis in the United States. It's very important. I'm going to use very round numbers, and I'm going to ignore closing costs just to make it super simple. You bought a house for $100,000 and you started using it as a rental. You keep depreciating over the years, depreciating. So the basis when you started, let's call it 100,000, but eventually it goes down to 0. Now the basis is 0. Now the house, let's say many years later, is worth $1 million, just round numbers. If you were to sell it, you'd pay long-term capital gains to the federal and to your state on the $1 million minus the basis, which is 0, on $1 million. It's a lot of money. But then you die. One day you die. On the day of your death in this country, amazing, full of gifts for the investor, we have step-up basis, like stepping up the stairs. The basis of the property goes up from 0 to the value of the property on the day you die. In my example, that's $1 million. Now, the day after you die, your heirs want to sell the property. They will pay tax on $1 million minus the new basis, which is also $1 million, 0. So once again, dying is a good tax move, although I don't recommend it. Stay around as much as you can. Let's see if you put another question here while I was blabbering here. Why not hold a home for more than 15 years? Are the maintenance costs too high? Are there any downsides? I can tell you, in my own portfolio, I have dozens of homes that I bought more than 30 years ago. So they're at least 30 years old, even more. When I began investing, it took me a few years to realize that buying brand new homes is the best thing to do. So my first 20, 30 homes, I bought them when they were already 20 or 30 years old. So I own homes in my portfolio that are 60 years old even, and 70. I don't find it to be particularly high on the maintenance. What I mean to say is, obviously, every X years, I change a roof. Depending on the market and the climate, it could be X, could be 20 years or 25. I've had 30, could be as little as 18. But once you change the roof, and I changed out of all my houses, probably in 2022, I probably changed about 4 or 5 roofs. The average cost was about $12,000. So, you know, if you want, you can even amortize it over all the many years. It's like $30 a month or something, 40. But once you put a new roof, oh, it starts over. Many, many years, decades are going to go by. Same for the air conditioner. The first few years, it's under the manufacturer's warranty. But then when I change an AC, which to me, the average has been more like 14, 15 years. I know the manufacturers say less, maybe because they want you to buy a new one. But I've had, ACs that lasted maybe even 20 years. But anyway, I change an AC, which I changed a few of them on all the properties. And I have this year probably 3 or 4, about 5,000. But once I change an AC now, many, many years are gonna. So the fact that the house is older has not presented particular problems. It's the AC, the water heater, the roof. Once you change them, the house is made of, a stucco and frame. It's not a big deal for me. And in fact, I live in a neighborhood in California, one of the neighborhoods that I have a home on. The house was built in 1949. It's not a cheap house at all. So I don't particularly see that that's a problem, but buying a new house is a good thing to do. Again, many reasons. Send us an email and I'll be happy to send you the article that I wrote about it. So somebody says step up basis is good thing for our heirs. Absolutely. It's very good for your heirs. But you yourself, if you did a 1031 exchange or 2 or 3 or 4, and you did an exchange and then you sold everything, you did another exchange and you did another exchange. The day you die, that's it. The thing is gone. So I mean, it could be not just tax deferred. You could get rid of the taxes by dying. But again, dying is not really good. So let's see what I have here. Some of you are pinging me by phone. Let's see. No. Okay. Any more questions? Not that I see. Again, I remind you, join us on the quick list. Send us an email, info@icgre. Put quick list in the subject. If you want to get a link to the PBS show, send an email. Want to be connected to the speakers, want to get some of their PowerPoints, send us an email. It's been a real joy to have you with us. Again, I personally think this is a very good time to buy. But then again, I almost always thought it was a good time to buy with hardly any exceptions, as long as they give you the gift called the 30-year fixed rate loans. By the way, if you want that, a magazine article from I think Entrepreneur magazine, yes, talking about me and Warren Buffett and the 30-year fixed rate loan, send us an email. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. I want to thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of the day or night, depending on where you are. And thank you so much.